Hello guys, welcome to Scion What If. So in this video, we will see what if Goku became the time breaker and ruled all timelines with a harem of goddesses. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Betrayal of Time. The crack of energy split the Tournament of Power arena as Goku's Ultra Instinct form pushed beyond anything he'd ever accessed before. Jiren, the Pride Trooper's strongest warrior, skidded backward across the shattered platform, his usually stoic face showing genuine shock. Impossible, Jiren muttered, his massive frame hunched forward as he struggled to remain standing. Your power, it keeps growing. Goku didn't respond with words. His silver-white aura pulsed as he vanished, reappearing behind Jiren faster than even the gods of destruction tracking the battle could follow. The impact of his fist connecting with Jiren's spine echoed throughout the void that housed the tournament stage. In the stands, Beerus leaned forward, purple ears twitching with excitement. He's actually going to do it. Whis nodded beside him, his normally playful expression unusually serious. Indeed. Son Goku has surpassed expectations once again. The final exchange happened so quickly that most spectators only caught the aftermath, Jiren sailing through the air, his body crashing against the barrier surrounding the arena before falling to the endless void below. The Grand Priest's voice rang out across the cosmic arena. Universe 11's Jiren has been eliminated. Universe 7 wins the Tournament of Power. The roar from Goku's friends was deafening. Krillin jumped up and down while Bulma hugged Chi-Chi, both women crying tears of relief. Even Vegeta allowed himself a slight smirk of approval. But Goku didn't hear any of it. As the silver glow of Ultra Instinct faded, he collapsed to his knees, exhaustion overwhelming him. His vision tunneled, and instead of the chaotic celebration, he saw something else, a flash of images too rapid to process consciously. Timelines, countless versions of himself, friends dying, worlds exploding, and behind it all, a pattern. Not random chaos, but deliberate manipulation. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was a voice he'd never heard before, somehow inside his own mind. Now you see it, Scion. The truth beyond the tournament. Goku woke with a start, sitting bolt upright in an unfamiliar bed. His body ached in ways he hadn't experienced since his first battle with Beerus, but his mind felt strangely clear, almost too clear. About time you rejoined us, Goku. Bulma sat nearby, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd been keeping watch for hours. You've been out for 3 days. 3 days? Goku rubbed his head, the strange visions from the tournament still swimming behind his eyes. What happened after Jiren, after you saved all our butts again? Bulma smirked. Super Dragon Balls got used to restore all the universes, big celebration, lots of speeches from the gods. The usual, Goku saves everything, aftermath. But something felt wrong. Goku swung his legs off the bed, ignoring the protest from his muscles. Where are we? He asked, noticing the room looked nothing like Capsule Corp or his home. Zeno wanted you nearby until you recovered. We're in a special recovery dimension adjacent to his palace. Bulma's voice carried an edge of nervousness that Goku rarely heard from her. Everyone else went home already, but I stayed to keep an eye on you. Goku closed his eyes, extending his senses outward. Something about Bulma's key signature felt off. Not quite wrong, but different. You're not Bulma, he said quietly, eyes snapping open. At least, not my timeline's Bulma. The woman's eyes widened momentarily before she chuckled. I sometimes forget how perceptive you can be beneath that goofy exterior. Her form shimmered, revealing a small, pink-skinned woman with lavender hair and pointed ears. Wearing ornate clothing that resembled the Supreme Kai's attire. Supreme Kai of Time, Goku said, the knowledge somehow already in his mind despite never having met her before. Kranoa, please. She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. And you're right, I'm not from your main timeline. I'm the guardian of time itself, and we need to talk, son Goku. Goku's stomach growled loudly, interrupting the tension. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Any chance we could talk over food? I'm starving after 3 days. Kranoa rolled her eyes but snapped her fingers. A table laden with food materialized. Some things are constant across all timelines, I suppose. As Goku devoured plate after plate, Kranoa explained that the Tournament of Power had created unprecedented strain on the multiverse's temporal fabric. His achieving complete Ultra Instinct had somehow allowed him to momentarily perceive the time streams themselves. That's not supposed to happen, she said, watching him inhale his 15th bowl of ramen. Mortals aren't meant to see the patterns of time. You mean those visions? Goku asked between bites. I saw myself dying in ways that never happened. I saw Frieza ruling Earth. I saw Gohan as a scholar and as a hardened warrior. Which ones were real? All of them, Kranoa said quietly. Every possibility branches into its own timeline, and my job is to maintain the proper flow, pruning dangerous divergences. Pruning? Goku stopped eating, his usually carefree expression darkening. You mean destroying timelines? Only the dangerous ones, she said defensively. Ones that threaten the overall stability. Goku's chopstick snapped between his fingers. You're killing entire universes of people. It's necessary. Kranoa stood up, her small frame suddenly emanating power. Without regulation, the time streams would collapse into chaos. Goku said nothing, pushing away from the table. The food no longer interested him as fragments of those visions returned, timelines being erased, friends and family he'd never met vanishing from existence. I want to see it, he said firmly. The time nest. Where you control everything from. Kranoa hesitated. That's not possible. Mortals aren't permitted. I just won the Tournament of Power and saved all universes from erasure, Goku interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that surprised even him. I think I've earned some answers. The time nest was unlike anything Goku had ever seen, a strange mixture of ancient temple architecture and futuristic technology. Massive scrolls lined crystalline shelves that stretched beyond sight. In the center stood an enormous tree whose branches seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The time tree, Kranoa explained as she led him through the complex. Each branch is a primary timeline, with smaller offshoots representing variants. Goku noticed numerous humanoid figures in matching uniforms moving through the facility. Your time patrol? Yes. Recruited from various timelines to help maintain order. She smiled proudly. Some are quite powerful, we even have a few scions. As they walked, Goku's enhanced senses picked up something that made him stop cold. In a chamber they passed, he felt key signatures, millions of them, suddenly vanish in an instant. He changed direction, ignoring Kranoa's protests, and pushed open the doors. Inside, a patrol member held a scroll that glowed with ominous red energy. As Goku watched, the man placed his hand on the scroll, channeling energy into it. The scroll turned black briefly before returning to normal, and the patrol member made a mark on a digital tablet. Divergence TL 42891 resolved, the man said, not noticing Goku's presence. What just happened? Goku demanded, causing the patrol member to jump. Supreme Kai of Time. This area is restricted, it's alright, Liam, Kranoa interrupted, looking uncomfortable. Goku is our guest. Please continue your duties. After the patrol member left, Goku turned to Kranoa, his eyes hard. That timeline was just erased, wasn't it? I felt all those lives disappear. That timeline was dangerous, she insisted. In that variant, Dr. Gero's androids conquered the entire universe, spreading nanomachine infection across multiple dimensions. Billions more would have died if we hadn't intervened. So you just wiped it out. There wasn't another way. Sometimes there isn't. Kranoa's voice hardened. This is the burden of maintaining time, Goku. Difficult choices must be made for the greater good. Goku was silent for a long moment before asking, who decides what the greater good is? Who chose you as the one to make these decisions? The gods of creation appointed me at the dawn of the multiverse, she replied, her tone suggesting this conversation was testing her patience. This system has maintained balance for millions of years. I want to see more, Goku said, his voice deceptively calm. Show me the records of my timeline, the major decision points. Kranoa appeared reluctant but eventually led him to a special archive room with scrolls bearing the symbol of Universe 7. These contain the key moments from your primary timeline, she explained. But you shouldn't. Goku had already picked up one of the scrolls, his instincts guiding him to a specific moment. As he opened it, energy surrounded him, and he found himself watching a scene from his past, but from outside his own body. He saw himself as a baby in the space pod, landing on Earth. But something was wrong. The scene rewound and played again, slightly differently. This time, his pod landed farther from Grandpa Gohan's house. Then it rewound again, and this time landed directly at Gohan's feet. The scene shifted to show a small figure, Kranoa, adjusting something on a control panel, fine-tuning the exact landing location of his pod. You interfered, Goku said as the vision faded. You made sure Grandpa Gohan found me. Your timeline is important, Kranoa admitted. Certain fixed points had to be maintained. Goku grabbed another scroll. This one showed his fight with Frieza on Namek. Again, he saw multiple versions, one where he never transformed into a Super Saiyan, another where he arrived too late and everyone died, and finally, the version he remembered. Scroll after scroll revealed the same pattern, subtle manipulations, tiny adjustments to ensure specific outcomes. His heart race with Piccolo. His marriage to Chi-Chi, Gohan's battle with Cell. Each pivotal moment of his life had been guided by invisible hands. All this time, he whispered, I thought I was making my own choices. You were. Kranoa insisted. We only ensure the major nexus points align with the optimal timeline. Optimal for who? Goku's voice had lost its usual cheerfulness entirely. How many times have my friends died because it was optimal for your plan? That's not fair, Kranoa said. We protect the multiverse, by playing with our lives like they're pieces on a game board, Goku interrupted. His aura began to flicker around him, responding to his rising anger. All those tournaments, all those battles, all that pain, was any of it real? Or just your script? Kranoa backed away, suddenly wary of the power rolling off the Saiyan. Goku, you need to calm down. The temporal energies here are sensitive. But Goku wasn't listening anymore. He reached for another scroll, one labeled with a strange symbol. Before Kranoa could stop him, he'd opened it, and new visions flooded his mind. He saw an alternative timeline where he never hit his head as a child, where he completed his Saiyan mission and conquered Earth. In that timeline, he eventually overthrew Frieza, becoming a powerful but fair ruler of a galactic empire. Not a hero, but not truly evil either. That timeline had been erased. He saw another where he and Vegeta formed a different kind of bond, becoming true brothers in arms who traveled the universes together seeking challenges. That timeline too had been eliminated. The pattern repeated across dozens of variants, any timeline where Goku deviated too far from the chosen path was eventually pruned, regardless of whether he caused harm or not. You've been controlling everything, Goku said, the scrolls dropping from his hands. Not just fixing problems, but forcing everyone to follow your idea of what should happen. The original time Kais established the parameters. Kranoa shouted, her composure finally breaking. I just maintain them. And what happens if I decide I don't want to be part of your plan anymore? Goku asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The look on Kranoa's face told him everything he needed to know. I see, he said. My timeline would become another, dangerous divergence, to be resolved. Goku, please, Kranoa tried a different approach, her voice softening. You're a hero. You've saved countless lives. The system works, the system controls people without their knowledge, Goku countered. That's not protection. That's not freedom. His fingers brushed against one final scroll, this one pulsing with golden energy. Something drew him to it, a feeling of destiny, of purpose beyond anything the Time Patrol had planned. As his hand closed around it, alarms blared throughout the time nest. Temporal breach detected. Security to the archives immediately, a voice announced over speakers. Goku, don't. Kranoa lunged for the scroll, but Goku was faster, opening it before she could reach him. This scroll showed no past event but a possibility, Goku standing at the time tree itself, surrounded by a group of powerful allies from across timelines, remaking the rules that governed reality. Not destroying the system, but transforming it into something that preserved true choice. So that's why this was locked away, Goku said, understanding dawning. Because it shows a future you can't control. The doors burst open as Time Patrol agents rushed in, led by a familiar face that shocked Goku, future Trunks, wearing a Time Patrol uniform. Kranoa, what's happening? Trunks asked, sword drawn. Then he spotted Goku. Goku? What are you doing here? This area is forbidden. Trunks. Goku's surprise quickly hardened into determination. Are you part of this too? Controlling timelines, erasing lives. It's not like that, Trunks insisted, though uncertainty flickered across his face. We protect time from manipulation. While manipulating it yourselves, Goku countered. He held up the golden scroll. Did you know about this? About what they've been doing to all our lives? Trunks hesitated, and in that moment, Kranoa acted. She fired a bolt of temporal energy directly at Goku. Containment Protocol Alpha. Secure the scroll and the intruder. Goku's Ultra Instinct reflexes took over. He dodged the blast, which hit the archive shelves instead, causing dozens of scrolls to crash to the floor. Temporal energy exploded outward as the scrolls opened simultaneously, creating a chaotic storm of overlapping realities. The timeline anchors. Kranoa screamed. Trunks, stop him before Goku didn't wait to hear the rest. In the confusion, he spotted what he was looking for, a display case containing a set of glowing rings. The time rings, he whispered, knowledge from the golden scroll somehow flowing into his mind. Without these, the Time Patrol's control would be severely limited. Moving faster than even Trunks could track, Goku shattered the case and grabbed the rings. Immediately, they resonated with his energy, almost as if they'd been waiting for him. Stop him. Kranoa's voice had transformed, echoing with the power of her divine station. The very fabric of the time nest warped around her as she unleashed her full authority as Supreme Kai of Time. But it was too late. Goku slipped one of the rings onto his finger, and reality fractured around him. The last thing he saw was Trunks running toward him, confusion and betrayal on his face, before the time nest vanished in a flash of light. Goku materialized in a strange void between realities. Streams of temporal energy flowed past him like rivers of light, each representing a different timeline. The time ring on his finger pulsed, somehow keeping him anchored despite the chaotic energies surrounding him. Where am I? He wondered aloud, turning slowly to take in the impossible vista. The temporal corridor, a woman's voice answered from behind him. A place between all timelines. Goku spun around to find a striking blue-skinned woman watching him with amused red eyes. Her white hair flowed around a face that somehow managed to be both beautiful and calculating. Her outfit, a red bodysuit under a black coat, marked her as no ordinary being. You're not with the Time Patrol, Goku said, dropping into a defensive stance. Hardly. The woman laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the void. I'm what they would call a time breaker. My name is Tawa. Time breaker. Someone who believes time should flow freely, not be constrained by the Kai's arbitrary rules. Tawa circled Goku, studying him with obvious interest. Though I must admit, I never expected Son Goku to become one of us. The Supreme Kai of Time's favorite pawn, rebelling against her. Delicious irony. I'm not a pawn, Goku said firmly. Not anymore. Clearly. Kawa gestured to the time ring. Those are meant to be worn only by Supreme Kais. The fact that it responds to you is fascinating. Goku looked down at the ring. It showed me how to escape when the time nest was collapsing. Because it recognized your potential, Kawa explained. Time rings are semi-sentient artifacts that resonate with beings who can influence temporal nexus points. Very few mortals qualify. How do you know all this? Goku asked, still wary but curious. Kawa's smile turned bitter. I was once part of the Time Kai hierarchy, a researcher developing ways to strengthen timelines against collapse. Until I discovered what you just did, that they weren't protecting time, but controlling it. She waved her hand, creating a window-like opening in the void that showed scenes of Time Patrol agents erasing timeline after timeline. They call it pruning, as if they're tending a garden, she continued. But they're extinguishing entire universes of lives, all to maintain their version of proper time flow. The images matched what Goku had seen in the scrolls, confirming her story. Still, something didn't add up. If you're fighting against them, why haven't they erased your timeline? Kawa laughed again. Because I don't have one anymore. I exist outside conventional time now, in the spaces between realities. It makes me harder to track, though they've been trying for centuries. Her expression grew serious. But you're different. You still have a prime timeline, which means they'll be coming for you. And soon. As if summoned by her words, a ripple passed through the void. Streams of temporal energy began converging, forming what looked like a tunnel. The Time Patrol, Kawa said, all amusement gone from her voice. They've tracked the ring. We need to move. Where? You said this place is between timelines. To my sanctuary. Kawa raised her staff, creating a doorway in the void. Unless you'd prefer to face an army of time patrollers alone. Goku glanced at the forming tunnel, sensing multiple power levels approaching, including one that felt like Trunks. The betrayal still stung. Lead the way, he decided. Kawa's sanctuary existed in a pocket dimension anchored to no particular timeline. It resembled a floating fortress of crystal and metal, surrounded by swirling temporal energies that seemed to form a protective barrier. Inside, Goku was surprised to find advanced technology unlike anything on Earth or even in Bulma's lab. Screens displayed countless timelines simultaneously, while strange devices hummed with power. Welcome to my humble abode, Kawa said, deactivating security measures with a wave of her staff. Not as impressive as the Time Nest, perhaps, but it serves its purpose. Which is what, exactly? Goku asked, still not entirely trusting her. Research, observation, and occasionally, intervention. She gestured to a wall where maps of timeline connections were displayed. I study the natural flow of time, looking for ways to counter the Time Patrol's manipulation. She led him to a central chamber where a large crystal sphere pulsed with energy. This is the chronosphere, my greatest creation. It allows me to view any point in any timeline without alerting the Time Patrol. Goku approached the sphere cautiously. Can it show me my friends? My family? I need to know they're safe. Kawa nodded, waving her hand over the crystal. It clouded momentarily before clearing to show Capsule Corporation. Bulma was pacing anxiously while Vegeta stood with arms crossed, his expression more concerned than he'd normally allow. Been 3 days since the tournament, Bulma was saying. No one's heard from him. Even Whis says he can't locate him. The Kakarot I know wouldn't just disappear, Vegeta replied. Not without a reason. The scene shifted to Goku's house, where Chi-Chi was cooking dinner with mechanical movements, her face tight with worry. Gohan sat at the table, talking quietly with Piccolo. The strangest thing is that his key signature completely vanished, Piccolo was saying. Not masked, not distant, gone, as if he never existed. The Time Patrol has isolated your timeline, Tawa explained, dispelling the image. Standard procedure when containing what they call a temporal anomaly, which is what you've become. They've cut me off from my family. Goku's fists clenched. Just like that. For now. Their goal will be to either bring you back under control or... She left the implication hanging. Erase my timeline. Goku's eyes flashed teal momentarily. I won't let that happen. Then we have common cause. Tawa studied him with renewed interest. But what exactly do you want, Son Goku? Revenge against the Time Patrol? Freedom for your timeline? Or something more? Goku looked down at the time ring on his finger, remembering the vision from the Golden Scroll. I want to fix this broken system, he said with quiet determination. Not destroy it, time needs protection, but rebuild it so people have real choices. No more erasing timelines just because they don't fit some plan. Tawa's expression was unreadable. An ambitious goal. The Time Kais have maintained their control for millions of years. I've faced impossible odds before, Goku said with a shrug and a hint of his usual confidence. Besides, I saw it in a scroll, a possibility where the system changes. A possibility isn't a guarantee, Tawa cautioned. Even with a time ring, you'd be facing the entire temporal authority structure. I won't be alone, Goku said, suddenly certain. The scroll showed others standing with me, allies from across timelines. Gathering such allies would be dangerous, Tawa said, though Goku noticed a gleam of interest in her eyes. But not impossible. First, though, you need to understand the true nature of time manipulation. She approached the chronosphere again, adjusting its settings. Let me show you something important, a timeline currently scheduled for pruning, because it diverges too far from what the Time Patrol considers acceptable. The sphere showed a planet that looked like Earth but with subtle differences. A massive energy wave was sweeping across its surface, disintegrating everything it touched. What is that? Goku asked, horrified. A timeline where Majin Buu was never contained, Tawa explained. He's already destroyed most of that universe. The Time Patrol has scheduled it for erasure tomorrow. All those people will die either way, Tawa said bluntly. By Majin Buu or by the Patrol's erasure. But there's a difference, erasure means they never existed at all. Their souls don't continue to the afterlife, they simply cease to be, across all dimensions and possibilities. Goku stared at the dying world, his mind racing. What if we saved them instead? Moved them to another timeline? Tawa looked genuinely surprised. That's not how the Time Patrol operates. They don't save, they erase problems. Then we'll be different, Goku said firmly. Show me how to get there. You want to intervene? Now. When the Time Patrol is hunting you. Those people need help, Goku said simply. And I need to show both the Time Patrol and myself what I stand for. Tawa studied him for a long moment before a slow smile spread across her face. You continue to surprise me, Scion. She raised her staff, creating a temporal doorway. I can send you there, but you'll have limited time before the patrol detects the interference. Goku nodded, his expression resolute. I'll be quick. As he stepped toward the portal, Tawa added, this will announce your intentions to the multiverse, you know. There's no going back after this. Goku paused, looking over his shoulder with the confident half-smile that had preceded so many of his greatest battles. Good. Let them know I'm coming. The timeline Goku entered was chaos incarnate. The sky burned crimson as Majin Buu, not the childlike version Goku remembered, but a twisted, primal creature of pure destruction, continued his rampage across the ruined landscape. Goku assessed the situation quickly. This version of Earth had no Z-fighters left, He could sense no significant power levels aside from Bu himself. Billions were already dead, but millions still remained, huddled in underground shelters or remote areas. No time to fight Bu, Goku muttered to himself. Need to focus on saving who's left. He placed 2 fingers to his forehead, using instant transmission to locate the largest concentration of survivors, an underground complex beneath what had once been West City. Thousands of people crowded together in fear, listening to emergency broadcasts that offered no hope. Goku appeared in the center of the main chamber, causing panic until he raised his hands. I'm here to help, he shouted above the chaos. This world is about to be destroyed, but I can take you somewhere safe. A woman in a tattered military uniform approached cautiously. Who are you? Another alien? My name is Goku. I'm from another timeline. He pointed upward. In a few hours, this entire reality will be erased. I can't save everyone, but I can save as many as possible. Skepticism was clear on their faces until a massive boom shook the shelter. Dust rained from the ceiling as Bu's destruction drew nearer. Where would you take us? The woman asked, desperation overriding caution. Goku realized he hadn't thought that far ahead. Where could he relocate thousands of refugees from a doomed timeline? Then he remembered something Tawa had shown him, a vacant Earth in a stable timeline where the planet had been abandoned after environmental collapse but remained habitable. To a new Earth, he answered. One without Majin Bu or any other threats. But we need to hurry. The military woman, who introduced herself as Commander Thorn, organized the evacuation with remarkable efficiency. Goku used his instant transmission to transport groups of 50 at a time to the sanctuary timeline, returning within seconds for the next group. Hours passed in a blur of movement. Goku's energy reserves began to drain from the constant dimensional jumping, but he pushed on, tracking down every survivor his senses could detect. As he worked, he felt a disturbance in the temporal energy. The Time Patrol had noticed the unauthorized interference. Time was running out. With one final effort, Goku located a hidden bunker containing the last large group of survivors, including, to his shock, a version of Bulma. This timeline's Bulma looked older, more weathered, with a cybernetic arm and scarred face. Goku? She whispered when he appeared. But, you died fighting Cell in this timeline. Different timeline, he explained quickly. I'll explain later, right now, we need to move. As he prepared to transport this final group, a temporal rift opened nearby. Trunks stepped through, sword drawn, accompanied by 3 other Time Patrol agents. Goku, stop! Trunks shouted. You're creating a Class 4 temporal disruption. I'm saving lives, Goku countered. Lives you were going to erase. This timeline is corrupted beyond repair, Trunks insisted. These people, are still people, Goku interrupted. Not just variables in some cosmic equation. Trunks looked torn, his eyes darting between Goku and the survivors. The Supreme Kai of Time has ordered your immediate return. Come back with us, and we can discuss. There's nothing to discuss. Goku's aura flared as he prepared to defend the refugees. This timeline's Bulma, tell Trunks what happened here. Tell him what Majin Bu did. The scarred Bulma stepped forward, her eyes widening as she looked at Trunks. You look like my son. He died fighting Bu 2 years ago. Trunks faltered, his resolve visibly shaken. I'm sorry, but what? Goku pressed. Is your proper timeline worth more than their lives? Before Trunks could answer, another portal opened. 2 more Time Patrol agents emerged, and with them, Supreme Kai of Time Kranoa herself. This has gone far enough, Goku, she said, her small form radiating authority. You don't understand the damage you're causing to the temporal fabric. I understand exactly what I'm doing, Goku replied. Giving these people a second chance instead of erasing them from existence. Their timeline was doomed the moment Majin Bu was released, Kranoa insisted. Transferring them to another timeline risks contaminating, a massive explosion cut her off as Majin Buu's destruction finally reached their location. The bunker began to collapse around them. No more time. Goku shouted. He gathered his ki and performed a mass instant transmission, taking all the survivors, and inadvertently, Trunks, with him as he teleported back to the sanctuary timeline. Kranoa's furious shout echoed behind them as the doomed timeline collapsed. The sanctuary timeline, a pristine but empty Earth, became suddenly crowded as nearly 10,000 refugees materialized across its surface. Goku had managed to coordinate their arrival in suitable locations, the largest group appearing in an abandoned but intact city. Trunks stumbled forward, disoriented by the unexpected transition. "What have you done?" he demanded. "You can't just, I just did," Goku said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Look around you, Trunks. These people were going to die, not just die, but be erased as if they never existed." Trunks did look, his expression conflicted as he watched families embracing, children crying with relief, the scarred Bulma already organizing shelter assignments. "The temporal protocols exist for a reason," he said, but with less conviction. "So do I," Goku countered. "And if saving lives means breaking your protocols, that's what I'll do." Another portal opened nearby, and Tawa stepped through, surveying the scene with evident satisfaction. "You actually did it," she said to Goku. "Impressive." Trunks instantly raised his sword. "Tawa. I should have known you were behind this." "Lower your weapon, Time Patroller," Tawa said dismissively. "Your Supreme Kai can't reach this timeline, I've shielded it specifically against her interference. You're outnumbered and outmatched." Goku stepped between them. "No fighting. Trunks isn't our enemy. He works for those who would have erased these people without hesitation," Tawa pointed out. "He's also my friend," Goku said firmly. "Or was. And he needs to see the truth for himself." Trunks lowered his sword slightly. "What truth?" Goku gestured around them. "That there's a better way than what the Time Patrol does. These people have a second chance now. A real future. And who decides which timelines to save and which to abandon?" Trunks challenged. "You. Tawa. No one should have that power," Goku said quietly. "That's the point. Every timeline deserves a chance." "A naive perspective," Tawa interjected. "Some timelines are genuinely destructive, then we find solutions that don't involve erasure," Goku insisted. "Exactly what we did today." Their discussion was interrupted as the scarred Bulma approached, looking warily at Trunks. "I don't understand everything that's happening," she said, "but my people need help setting up infrastructure. This city has the basics, but we need to get power systems online, establish food production." Goku turned to Trunks. "Help them. See what we're fighting for. Then decide." Trunks hesitated, clearly torn between duty and the obvious need before him. Finally, he sheathed his sword. "I'll help," he said. "But this doesn't mean I agree with what you've done." "Fair enough," Goku replied with a hint of his usual grin. "Actions matter more than words anyway." As Trunks walked away with Bulma, Tao moved closer to Goku. "You've made a powerful statement today," she said. "Defying the Time Patrol, rescuing a doomed timeline, the ripples are already spreading across the temporal continuum." "Good," Goku said. "But this is just the beginning. What's your next move?" Goku looked down at the time ring on his finger. "I need allies. People who understand what's at stake and have the power to help change things." "I might know where to find one," Tawa said with a mysterious smile. "Another divine being who's grown, disillusioned with the current order." "Who?" "Vados, angel attendant to Universe's excess god of destruction." Tawa's eyes gleamed. "And perhaps the most knowledgeable being in the multiverse. Regarding temporal mechanics, aside from the Grand Priest himself." Goku remembered Vados from the tournament between Universes 6 and 7, Whisa's sister and every bit as powerful. Why would she help us? Because angels see more than they let on, Tawa explained. They observe the time Kai's manipulation but are forbidden to interfere directly. Some, like Vados, have grown, frustrated with the limitations. Goku nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind. Can you get a message to her? Better, Tawa said. I can get you to her. But it will be dangerous, approaching an angel without permission from the hierarchy. I'm used to dangerous, Goku replied with a determined smile. And we need all the help we can get. As they prepared to leave, Goku looked back at the refugees beginning their new lives. Today had been just one small victory against a system that had controlled reality for millions of years. The real battle was just beginning. But for the first time since discovering the truth, he felt something he recognized well, the familiar excitement of facing a worthy challenge. Not just another fight, but a chance to truly change the multiverse for the better. Time to break some rules, he said with growing confidence. And maybe remake them along the way. Chapter 2, The Gathering Storm. Finding an angel wasn't easy, even with a time ring and Tawa's knowledge of temporal backdoors. Universe 6 existed in a completely different dimensional plane than Universe 7, and the angels had their own methods of detecting unauthorized visitors. Are you sure this is gonna work? Goku asked as he and Tao hovered in a strange void between universes. The space around them warped and twisted with cosmic energies that made even instantaneous transmission seem primitive by comparison. No, Tawa admitted with surprising frankness. Angels exist partially outside normal time flow. Vados will sense our approach long before we arrive. So what's the plan then? Tawa smiled, twirling her staff. We're not sneaking in. We're extending an invitation. She raised her staff, channeling energy through it into the void. The power signature it emitted was distinctive, a beacon that any angel would recognize instantly. You're broadcasting our location? Goku asked, surprised. Won't that alert the Time Patrol too? Certainly, Tawa replied calmly. But they won't be able to follow us here without angel assistance. And by then, we'll either have convinced Vados to hear us out, or be cosmic dust, Goku finished. Guess there's no middle ground with angels. They didn't wait long. The fabric of reality parted smoothly, creating an opening through which Vados emerged, her tall staff clicking against nothingness as she stepped into the void. Her expression was one of mild curiosity rather than hostility. A time breaker and a scion with a time ring, she said, her melodic voice echoing in the void. What an unusual combination. Goku stepped forward. Hi, Vados. Been a while. 3 days in your personal timeline, Vados replied precisely. Though your recent activities have created quite the temporal disturbance. The Supreme Kai of Time is displeased. That's putting it mildly, Tawa muttered. Vados turned her attention to Tawa. And you? The rogue temporal researcher who's been causing mischief for centuries. I expected better shielding techniques from someone with your reputation. We wanted you to find us, Goku explained before Tawa could respond. We need to talk. Vados raised a delicate eyebrow. About the 10,000 refugees you relocated from a condemned timeline? Or perhaps your theft of a sacred time ring? Both are rather significant violations of cosmic law. About the system that's been controlling every timeline without anyone knowing, Goku said bluntly. The time Kais don't protect time, they manipulate it. Vados's expression didn't change, but her staff tapped once against the void, a gesture Goku had seen Whis make when something interested him. Bold accusations, she said. Though not entirely inaccurate. Tawa and Goku exchanged surprised glances. You know? Tawa asked. Angels observe, Vados replied simply. We see the workings of time differently than most beings. The Supreme Kai of Time's methods have always been questionable. But not unauthorized. So you just watch while they erase entire timelines. Goku's voice held an edge of challenge that few would dare direct at an angel. Vados studied him with new interest. The angel hierarchy maintains neutrality in matters of timeline management. It's not our domain to interfere. Even when they're wrong. Goku pressed. Especially then, Vados replied. Cosmic balance requires clear separation of authorities. Time Kais manage time. Destroyers balance creation and destruction. Angels observe and guide. Zeno oversees all. Sounds like a bunch of excuses to me, Goku said, crossing his arms. If you know it's wrong but do nothing, you're part of the problem. Tawa tensed beside him, clearly expecting Vados to obliterate them both for his insolence. Instead, Vados laughed, a sound like crystal bells. You haven't changed, son Goku. Always questioning authority, even divine authority. She tilted her head. It's refreshing, in its way. She made a graceful gesture, and the void around them transformed. Suddenly they stood in an elegant pavilion floating among stars, with comfortable seating and a table laden with refreshments. Let us discuss this properly, Vados said, taking a seat. You've gone to considerable risk to seek me out. I'm curious to hear why. Goku didn't hesitate. He sat across from her and launched into his story, discovering the time Kais manipulation, seeing the erased timelines, rescuing the refugees. I saw something in a scroll, he concluded. A possibility where the system changes, where timelines are protected but not controlled. And you were there, standing with us. Vados sipped delicately from a cup of celestial tea. Temporal possibility scrolls are notoriously unreliable. They show what might be, not what will be. But they show what can be, Goku insisted. And this one felt right. The way going Super Saiyan felt right, or mastering Ultra Instinct. Interesting analogy, Vados murmured. And what exactly do you propose? Overthrowing the Supreme Kai of Time. Taking control of the time nest yourself. Not control, Goku clarified. Protection. Real protection. No more erasing timelines because they don't follow someone's plan. No more manipulating events to create specific outcomes. A multiverse of genuine free will, Tawa added. My research suggests it's possible to maintain temporal stability without the heavy-handed approach the time Kais use. Vados set down her cup. And you believe I would aid this revolution? Directly opposing the established cosmic order? I believe you care about what's right, Goku said simply. Whis does. I think you do too. For a long moment, Vados was silent, her expression unreadable. When she spoke again, her voice had lost some of its playful quality. Angels are bound by strict rules of non-interference, she said. Breaking those rules carries consequences beyond your comprehension. Goku's face fell, but Vados held up a hand. However, she continued, there are interpretations of those rules that provide certain flexibility. Especially when the actions of time Kais threaten the fundamental balance between universes. What does that mean? Goku asked. Vados stood, her staff gleaming. It means, son Goku, that I cannot join your rebellion. But I can, observe it. Closely. Perhaps offer insights about temporal mechanics that might prove useful. Tawa's eyes widened. You're willing to share angel knowledge of time. Knowledge isn't interference, Vados said with a hint of her usual smile. And if that knowledge helps restore proper balance to the multiverse, well, that would simply be an interesting coincidence, wouldn't it? A subtle shift in the void caught her attention. Someone approaches. Your time patrol friends have found an interdimensional escort, it seems. Goku tensed, ready for battle. How many? A significant force, Vados replied. Led by the one called Future Trunks. And, her expression darkened slightly, my brother Whis accompanies them. Whis? Goku hadn't expected that. He's working with the Time Patrol. The Supreme Kai of Time likely requested his assistance officially, Vados explained. He would be bound to comply, even if reluctantly. She waved her staff, creating a small temporal bubble around them. This will shield us briefly, but you must leave. I cannot be seen directly aiding you. But we just started talking, Goku protested. There's still so much, Universe 10, Vados interrupted. The Garden of Time. 3 cycles from now. I will share what I can. She looked at Tawa. You know the way. Tawa nodded. I know it. Vados turned back to Goku. One last thing. Your actions have already altered the temporal landscape more than you realize. Other powerful beings will take notice. Some may seek to join you. Others to destroy you. Story of my life, Goku said with a confident grin. This isn't like your previous battles, Vados cautioned. Time is the ultimate power in the multiverse. Those who control it rarely surrender that control willingly. The temporal bubble around them flickered as a more powerful presence approached. Go, Vados urged. And Son Goku? Choose your next allies carefully. Not all who oppose the Time Heist do so for noble reasons. With that cryptic warning, she dissolved the bubble. Tawa immediately opened a temporal gateway, pulling Goku through just as Whis and a contingent of Time Patrol agents materialized in the void. The last thing Goku saw was Vados greeting her brother with perfect composure, as if she'd simply been enjoying the cosmic view rather than consorting with fugitives. The Garden of Time in Universe 10 was unlike anything Goku had ever seen, a massive expanse where plants from every era and timeline grew together in impossible harmony. Trees with crystalline leaves stood beside flowers that bloomed backwards in time, their petals opening and closing in reverse. Streams flowed uphill, and the sky shifted through colors that had no names in mortal languages. This place exists in a temporal neutral zone, Tawa explained as they waited for Vados. Created before the Time Heist established their authority. Even they're hesitant to exert full control here. Goku walked beside a stream that flowed in both directions simultaneously. It feels alive. Like the whole garden is watching us. Perceptive, Tawa said with approval. The garden itself is semi-sentient, a being of pure temporal energy that took root when time and space first separated. 3 days had passed since their meeting with Vados. They'd spent the intervening time at Tawa's sanctuary, monitoring the refugee settlement and avoiding Time Patrol detection. The scarred Bulma from the rescued timeline had proven remarkably adaptable, already establishing a functioning society among the refugees. More surprisingly, Trunks had remained with them, officially gathering intelligence, but clearly conflicted about his loyalties. He'd kept his distance from Goku, but his actions spoke volumes, helping the refugees, training their defenders, even working alongside the alternate Bulma to restore technology. Vados approaches, Tawa said suddenly, looking skyward. A beam of light descended into the garden, depositing Vados with her usual grace. She carried a small crystalline box in addition to her staff. You came, Goku said, unable to hide his relief. I said I would, Vados replied. Though we must be brief. My absence will be noticed. She handed the crystal box to Goku. Inside was what appeared to be a miniature version of the Time Nest's archives, rows of tiny scrolls arranged in perfect order. The Temporal Codex, Vados explained. A complete record of how time actually functions, not the sanitized version the Time Heist teach. It contains knowledge even angels rarely access. Goku stared at the box in awe. This is amazing, but I'm not sure I can understand all this technical stuff. That's why you have allies, Vados pointed out, glancing at Tawa who was already examining the codex with reverent hands. This changes everything, Tawa whispered. The temporal mathematics alone would revolutionize how we approach timeline stabilization. Use it wisely, Vados cautioned. The codex reveals the true nature of timelines, not as branches to be pruned, but as interconnected streams that naturally support each other when allowed to flow properly. That's what I saw, Goku said excitedly. In that golden scroll. Timelines supporting each other instead of being controlled. Vados nodded. The time Kais abandoned that model ages ago, believing stricter control was necessary to prevent collapse. They were wrong. She turned to face Goku directly. But changing the system won't be easy. The Supreme Kai of Time has already labeled you a Class Alpha temporal criminal. Every time patroller in existence has been ordered to capture or eliminate you. Let them try, Goku said with characteristic confidence. There's more, Vados continued. Your actions with the refugee timeline created what angels call a temporal nexus echo, a disturbance that resonates across multiple realities. Other beings sensitive to time distortions will have felt it. Is that bad? Goku asked. It depends on who responds, Vados replied. Which brings me to a warning. The Time Patrol has dispatched your friend Future Trunks to lead the effort against you. Trunks is already with us, Tawa interjected. He came through during the refugee evacuation. Vados shook her head. Not that Trunks. A different temporal variant, one completely loyal to the Supreme Kai of Time. More experienced, more ruthless. Another Trunks? Goku frowned. That could get confusing. The multiverse often is, Vados said with a hint of amusement. But this variant should not be underestimated. He's been authorized to use methods normally forbidden to time patrollers. Great, Goku muttered. Fighting Trunks is tough enough when he's not trying to erase me from existence. Which brings me to my final contribution, Vados said, raising her staff. A temporal window opened, showing a fierce battle on a devastated landscape. Two female scions, one slender with dark hair, the other more muscular with wild red hair, fought side by side against what appeared to be corrupted Time Patrol agents. Their coordination was flawless, moving as if they shared a single mind. Who are they? Goku asked, mesmerized by their fighting style. Caulifla and Kale, Vados answered. From a timeline where their pod-era fusion became permanent. They now exist as both individuals and as the fused warrior Kefla. Simultaneously, a temporal anomaly the Time Patrol has been trying to eliminate for years. They've survived against the Time Patrol that long? Tawa asked with newfound respect. Through sheer determination and remarkable adaptability, Vados confirmed. They've been jumping between timelines, always one step ahead of erasure. Until now. The viewing window expanded to show more context. The scions were cornered, a temporal containment field closing around them. This is happening now? Goku asked urgently. Vados nodded. Timeline U6, Delta, 42. A variant of Universe 6 where the Tournament of Power had different outcomes. Goku didn't hesitate. We have to help them. He turned to Tawa. Can you get us there? With the time ring, yes, she replied. But it would mean directly confronting the Time Patrol again. They'll be expecting interference after the refugee incident. Good. Goku's expression hardened with resolve. Time they learned we're serious. Vados watched this exchange with an unreadable expression. My official observation ends here. What you do with the information I've provided is, of course, entirely your decision. Goku grinned at her. Thanks, Vados. I think we both know what that decision is. As Tawa prepared a temporal gateway, Vados added one final comment. The Time Kais believe absolute control is necessary for stability. Perhaps it's time they witnessed a different approach, one based on connection rather than dominance. She vanished in a column of light, returning to her official duties. But Goku couldn't shake the feeling that they'd gained more than just an informant in the Angel. Ready? Tawa asked, the gateway swirling open before them. Goku nodded, his expression determined. Let's go save some scions. Universe SXS Delta, 42 variant was a mess of fractured time. Parts of the landscape appeared frozen in temporal stasis, while others accelerated or reversed randomly. The battle they'd witnessed through Vados's window had escalated. A dozen Time Patrol agents now surrounded Caulifla and Kale, who fought back-to-back in the center of a tightening temporal containment field. Goku and Tawa emerged on a ridge overlooking the confrontation. From their vantage point, they could see the unique nature of the Scion women's condition. They flickered occasionally between their individual forms and the fused Kefla, the transition smooth and controlled rather than the usual flash of Potera energy. Fascinating, Tawa murmured. They've fully integrated the fusion state into their base existence. Less fascination, more action, Goku replied, powering up immediately to Super Saiyan Blue. I'll break the containment field. You get ready to open an escape route. Without waiting for acknowledgement, Goku teleported directly into the center of the battle, appearing between the Scion women and their attackers. His sudden arrival created a shockwave that disrupted the temporal field's integrity. Who the hell are you? Caulifla demanded, not lowering her guard despite the intervention. A friend, Goku said simply, facing the Time Patrol agents. I'm Goku. I'm here to help. One of the agents, a tall, green-skinned humanoid with temporal regulation devices covering his armor, stepped forward. Son Goku. The Supreme Kai of Time warned you might interfere. Stand down or face erasure alongside these anomalies. Not gonna happen, Goku replied. He glanced back at Caulifla and Kale. These Time guys been giving you trouble long? 2 years, Kale said softly, her normally shy demeanor hardened by prolonged pursuit. They won't leave us alone just because we exist differently. They call us unstable fusion products, Caulifla added with obvious disgust. Want to correct the timeline by wiping us out. That was all Goku needed to hear. His aura exploded outward as he pushed deeper into his blue form, the power causing cracks in the temporal containment field. Last chance, the lead agent warned, activating a temporal disruptor weapon. The Supreme Kai might want you alive, but she'll understand if accidents happen. Goku's response was a concentrated energy blast that shattered the containment field entirely. The Time Patrol agents scattered, some firing temporal nullification rays that Goku dodged with Ultra Instinct-enhanced reflexes. Caulifla. Kale. Can you still fight? He called over his shoulder. The answer came not in words but in action. The two women synchronized perfectly, momentarily merging into Kefla, who launched herself at 3 agents simultaneously. Her fighting style was unlike anything Goku had seen before, fluid transitions between the strengths of both component scions, unpredictable and devastatingly effective. The battle escalated quickly. The Time Patrol agents, realizing they faced not just their original targets but the notorious temporal fugitive Goku himself, activated emergency protocols. Reinforcements began appearing through temporal gates, including specialists equipped with time-freezing technology. There are too many. Kale called out as she narrowly avoided a temporal stasis beam. Just a little longer. Goku shouted back. He could see Tawa on the ridge, preparing their escape route while simultaneously disrupting the Time Patrol's communications. A stasis beam grazed Goku's arm, instantly numbing it from shoulder to fingertips. He grimaced but adapted quickly, focusing his attacks through his unaffected limbs. The Time Patrol's numbers continued to grow, 20 agents now, then 30, surrounding them in a tightening circle. Just when it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a familiar figure teleported into the battle, Trunks, the one who had been helping the refugees, sword drawn and determination on his face. Trunks! Goku exclaimed, genuinely surprised. You came. Don't read too much into it, Trunks replied, slicing through a temporal disruptor with his sword. I'm still figuring out where I stand. But erasing innocent people just because they're different? He glanced at Caulifla and Kale. That's not right. The addition of Trunks to their side shifted the momentum briefly, allowing them to push back against the patrol's advance. But the respite was short-lived as a new temporal gate opened, larger and more stable than the others. Through this gate stepped another Trunks, identical to the one fighting alongside Goku, but with colder eyes and temporal regulator devices integrated into his patrol uniform. Behind him came a squad of elite temporal enforcers. "Well," said their Trunks, staring at his counterpart. "This is awkward." "Traitor," the Time Patrol Trunks said flatly. "The Supreme Kai of Time trusted you, and you betray her for what?" "These aberrations." "For what's right," their Trunks replied. "Look around you. They're not hurting anyone, they just want to exist." The Patrol Trunks ignored him, focusing instead on Goku. "Son Goku. By authority of the Supreme Kai of Time, you are ordered to surrender the stolen time ring and submit to temporal correction procedures." "That sounds unpleasant," Goku remarked, maintaining his battle stance. "Think I'll pass." "This isn't a negotiation," Patrol Trunks said coldly. He raised a specialized temporal weapon. "This is a Chronon disruptor. One shot will freeze you in your personal timeline, allowing us to extract you without resistance." "That's cheating," Caulifla called out, her hands glowing with energy. "Fight fair or don't fight at all." "Temporal criminals don't dictate terms," Patrol Trunks replied. He gave a signal, and his squad took aim with similar weapons. In that moment, Tao's voice echoed in Goku's mind through their temporal link. "The gateway is ready. Northeast, 200 meters. I can't hold it long with their interference." Goku nodded subtly, catching Trunks' eye and then Kefla's, as she had momentarily fused again. A silent plan formed between them. "Now!" Goku shouted, unleashing a massive Kamehameha not at the patrol forces but at the ground beneath them. The resulting explosion kicked up debris and temporal dust, temporarily blinding the patrol's sensors. In the confusion, Kefla grabbed both Trunks and Goku, using her tremendous speed to dash toward the extraction point. Time Patrol Trunks recovered faster than his team, firing the Chronon disruptor through the debris cloud. The beam narrowly missed Goku but caught the edge of Kefla's aura. The effect was instantaneous and unexpected. Instead of freezing her in time, it triggered a temporal fluctuation in her unique fused state. She cried out in pain, her form destabilizing as she stumbled forward. "Kefla!" Goku turned back, but their Trunks pushed ahead. "Keep going. I've got her." Their Trunks supported the struggling Scion fusion as they reached Tao's gateway, a swirling vortex of temporal energy fighting against the Time Patrol suppression field. "Hurry!" Tawa urged, visibly straining to maintain the portal. "Their temporal anchors are trying to close it." Goku hesitated at the threshold. "Trunks! Kefla! Come on!" Trunks half-carried the destabilizing Kefla toward the portal. They were meters away when the patrol Trunks emerged from the dust cloud, Chronon disruptor aimed directly at them. "Stop or I fire," he commanded. Their Trunks didn't hesitate. He threw Kefla forward through the portal with all his strength, then turned to face his counterpart. "Go, Goku," he shouted. "I'll hold them off. But, I'm a time patroller too. They can't erase me without authorization. Go." With a final reluctant nod, Goku leaped through the portal. The last image he saw was Trunks facing down his other self, sword raised against temporal weapons. Then the gateway closed, and they were hurtling through the time stream. They materialized in Tao's sanctuary, Kefla collapsing immediately as her fusion state fluctuated wildly. One moment Caulifla and Kale appeared as separate entities, the next they snapped back into Kefla, the transitions growing more erratic and painful. "What's happening to them?" Goku asked urgently as Tawa examined the destabilizing scions. "The Chronon disruptor affected their fusion state," Tawa explained, scanning them with her staff. "Their temporal signature was already unusual, now it's completely destabilized. They're phase-shifting between states uncontrollably. Can you fix it?" "Perhaps." Tawa's expression was grave. "But it requires deep temporal manipulation, the kind of thing only time rings were designed to do." Goku looked down at the ring on his finger. "Then use this." Tawa shook her head. "It's not that simple." The ring responds to your energy, your intent. I can guide you, but you must perform the actual stabilization. Me? Goku looked uncertain. I don't know anything about temporal manipulation. You've been doing it instinctively since you acquired the ring, Towa pointed out. How do you think you've avoided time patrol detection between our excursions? The ring responds to your natural temporal affinity. Kefla's form spasmed again, splitting briefly into Caulifla and Kale, who cried out in pain before snapping back together. Tell me what to do, Goku said with sudden determination. Under Towa's guidance, Goku placed his hand with the time ring against Kefla's forehead. He closed his eyes, focusing his energy through the ring as Towa instructed him to visualize the separate timelines within the fusion, to see not conflict but harmony. Don't force them apart or together, Towa advised. Find the natural balance point, the place where both states exist simultaneously. Goku's consciousness extended through the ring, perceiving time in ways he'd never imagined. He could see the unique temporal signature of Kefla's existence, the beautiful complexity of two beings existing in quantum superposition. The Chronon disruptor had forced these states into conflict, creating temporal friction. Working instinctively, Goku used the ring to smooth these conflicts, creating a stable resonance between the separate and fused states. He felt the ring growing warm on his finger, channeling power far beyond what he'd accessed before. After what seemed like hours but was merely minutes, the chaotic fluctuations calmed. Kefla's form stabilized, her breathing steadying. When she opened her eyes, they held awareness of both Caulifla and Kale simultaneously. What did you do? She asked, her voice carrying dual tones that somehow harmonized perfectly. Fixed what they broke, Goku said simply, though he felt drained from the effort. How do you feel? Kefla sat up, examining her hands. Balanced. For the first time since the fusion became permanent. She looked at Goku with newfound respect. You understand, don't you? What it's like to be two things at once. Goku thought about his own transformations, the way Super Saiyan had once felt like another being inside him before he integrated it fully. Maybe a little, he admitted. Though your situation is way more complicated. Where's Trunks? Kefla asked suddenly, looking around. The one who helped us. Goku's expression darkened. He stayed behind to give us time to escape. Then we need to go back for him, she said immediately, attempting to stand. We will, Goku assured her, but not yet. The Time Patrol will be expecting that. And you need to recover. As if to emphasize his point, Kefla's form briefly shimmered, still adjusting to the new stability. He's right, Towa added. Your temporal signature is stabilizing, but rushing back into battle could undo everything. Kefla reluctantly nodded, then fixed Goku with an intense gaze. Why did you help us? You don't even know us. Because the Time Patrol was wrong, Goku said simply. They wanted to erase you just for being different. That's not protecting time, that's controlling it. And that bothers you? Enough to make yourself a target? It more than bothers me, Goku replied, his usually carefree demeanor hardening. It goes against everything I believe in. Everyone deserves a chance to live their own life, make their own choices, not follow some predetermined path. Kefla studied him for a long moment before a grin spread across her face, Caulifla's confidence with Kale's warmth. Then count me in, whatever you're planning. Anyone who'd risk their neck for strangers and can actually fix this mess, she gestured to her fused body, is worth following. I'm not looking for followers, Goku clarified. Just allies who believe in the same thing. Even better, Kefla replied. So what's the actual plan? Besides rescuing Trunks and pissing off the Time Patrol? Goku exchanged glances with Towa, who nodded encouragingly. He explained what they'd learned about the time Kais manipulation, their rescue of the refugee timeline, and the vision from the Golden Scroll showing a different approach to temporal management. So you want to, what, overthrow the Supreme Kai of Time? Kefla asked when he finished. Not exactly, Goku said. I want to change the system, not just replace who's in charge. Time needs protection, but not control. Balance without erasure. And you think we can pull this off? Kefla sounded skeptical but intrigued. Go against the entire temporal authority structure. With the right allies, yes, Goku said confidently. Vados is already helping us indirectly. We've got Tao's knowledge, my ring, your unique abilities, and who knows who else might join once they see what we're doing. Speaking of which, Tawa interjected, we should check on the refugee timeline. It's been several days since we established them. She activated the chronosphere, focusing it on the sanctuary timeline. The image that formed caused all of them to tense. Time patrol vessels hovered above the settlement, though they hadn't yet breached the protective barrier Tawa had established. They found them, Goku said grimly. They were bound to eventually, Tawa replied. But they can't break through my shields without authorization from someone higher than the Supreme Kai of Time. They're observing, not attacking. Yet. The chronosphere zoomed in to show the refugee settlement itself. Despite the threatening presence above, life continued below. The scarred Bulma had organized the city remarkably well, with power systems running and agriculture already established in the surrounding countryside. Defenders patrolled the perimeter, some equipped with technology Bulma had salvaged or recreated. They're thriving, Goku observed with satisfaction. Even with the time patrol breathing down their necks. Which proves your point, Kefla noted. These people deserve to exist, timeline rules, be damned. A new alert from the chronosphere drew their attention. A temporal anomaly was forming near the refugee timeline, not a time patrol signature, but something else entirely. What is that? Goku asked as the energy pattern crystallized. Tawa's expression grew concerned. It's a dimensional incursion, someone forcing their way through from another reality plane. And the energy signature is. She trailed off, her eyes widening. What? Kefla pressed. Who is it? The answer came not from Tawa but from the chronosphere itself as the image clarified. A familiar figure emerged through the dimensional tier, green skin, white hair, the unmistakable attire of a Kai. Zamasu, Goku breathed, old battles instantly replaying in his mind. But this wasn't the Zamasu he remembered fighting alongside Vegeta and future Trunks. This version appeared different, calmer, his body marked with strange temporal scars that glowed with inner light. A timeline variant, Tawa explained, analyzing the readings. One who survived the erasure of his reality by embedding himself in the temporal void itself. They watched as this Zamasu approached the boundary between timelines, observing both the refugee settlement and the time patrol ships above. His expression was unreadable, but the power emanating from him was undeniable. This complicates matters, Tawa said grimly. Zamasu's hatred of mortals is consistent across all his variants. If he's targeting the refugee timeline, we need to get there now, Goku said, already preparing himself for teleportation. Wait, Tawa cautioned. This Zamasu is different from the ones you've encountered before. His temporal signature suggests he's existed in the void between realities for centuries, perhaps millennia from his perspective. Meaning what? Meaning he's had time to evolve, to learn. Tawa's expression was grave. And given his godlike complex, he may see himself as the rightful arbiter of time, opposed to both us and the time patrol. Great, Kefla muttered. Not just time cops, but a psycho god with a grudge. This gets better and better. Can you fight? Goku asked her directly. Really fight, if it comes to that? You're still recovering. Kefla's response was to power up, her aura stabilizing into a perfect blend of Caulifla's and Kale's energies. Try and stop me. Goku nodded, satisfied. He turned to Tawa. Get us there, but be ready to pull us out if things go south. And keep searching for Trunks, we're not leaving him with the time patrol. Tawa began creating a temporal gateway, more complex than previous ones to avoid time patrol detection. The presence of both Zamasu and the patrol will make this challenging. I can get you close, but not directly to the settlement. Close is good enough, Goku replied, his expression hardening with determination. Time to show both Zamasu and the Time Patrol that there's a new approach to protecting timelines. They emerged on the outskirts of the refugee settlement, using a mountain range for cover. From their vantage point, they could see both the Time Patrol ships hovering above and Zamasu, who now stood atop a cliff overlooking the city, apparently studying it with curiosity rather than immediate hostility. What's his play? Kefla whispered as they observed from concealment. Why hasn't he attacked? Good question, Goku replied. Last time I faced Zamasu, he was all about destroying mortals, not watching them. Tawa, who had accompanied them this time, scanned Zamasu with her staff. His temporal signature is unlike anything I've seen before. It's as if he exists partially outside normal time flow, similar to angels, but different. I'm going to talk to him, Goku decided suddenly. Are you insane? Kefla hissed. That's Zamasu, universal genocider, mortal hater supreme. That was a different Zamasu, Goku corrected her. Maybe this one's different. And if not? He shrugged. Better to find out his intentions now than wait for him to make the first move. Before either could protest further, Goku used instant transmission to appear near Zamasu, close enough to engage but far enough to react if attacked. Zamasu didn't seem surprised by his arrival. He turned slowly, his eyes, which held swirling galaxies within them, regarding Goku with calm recognition. Son Goku, he said, his voice resonating with temporal harmonics. The Nexus Point incarnate. I wondered when you would arrive. Nexus Point. Goku remained cautious but didn't take a fighting stance yet. What do you mean? A being around whom timelines naturally pivot, Zamasu explained, as if discussing something obvious. There are very few in existence. I am one. You are another. This wasn't the ranting, hate-filled Zamasu that Goku remembered. This being spoke with the detached interest of an observer. You're not trying to kill me, Goku noted. That's different. A faint smile touched Zamasu's lips. I have transcended such primitive impulses. Centuries in the temporal void provide perspective. So why are you here? Goku gestured toward the settlement below. These people just want to live in peace. Indeed. Zamasu's gaze returned to the city. A fascinating experiment. Refugees from a condemned timeline, relocated rather than erased. Directly contradicting the time Kais protocols. He looked back at Goku. Your work, I presume. Goku nodded cautiously. They deserved a chance. And who decided that? You. There was no accusation in Zamasu's tone, merely curiosity. What gives you the right to determine their fate any more than the time Kais? The question caught Goku off guard. I'm not determining their fate. I'm giving them the freedom to determine it themselves. An interesting distinction, Zamasu acknowledged. One that I've contemplated during my exile. The difference between control and liberation. By now, Kefla and Tawa had approached cautiously, remaining at a distance but ready to intervene if needed. You've changed, Goku observed. The Zamasu I knew wanted to exterminate all mortals. That Zamasu was a child, he replied dismissively. Seeing only the surface chaos of mortal existence. I have witnessed deeper patterns. He gestured toward the Time Patrol ships. As have you, it seems, hence your conflict with the temporal authorities. They're manipulating timelines, erasing entire realities just to maintain their version of proper time flow, Goku explained, watching for any reaction. Zamasu nodded slowly. Yes. A flawed approach born of fear. The Time Kais believe chaos will consume all if they don't maintain rigid control. They fail to understand that temporal streams naturally seek balance when allowed to interact properly. Goku stared at him in surprise. That's exactly what we've been saying. Is it? Zamasu's eyes gleamed with inner light. Then perhaps our purposes align, however temporarily. What exactly is your purpose? Tawa asked, finally approaching. You've been observing this timeline for hours without acting. Learning, Zamasu replied simply. This settlement represents something unprecedented, a direct challenge to the Time Kai's authority that doesn't seek merely to destroy, but to create an alternative. He turned fully toward them, his expression becoming more serious. The Time Patrol above is merely the vanguard. They've summoned reinforcements, including temporal executioners authorized to erase this entire reality pocket. When? Goku demanded. Within hours, Zamasu replied. They wait only for final authorization from the Supreme Kai of Time herself. We need to evacuate everyone, Kefla said urgently. Impossible, Tawa countered. There are over 10,000 refugees. We couldn't move them all before the patrol strikes, especially not with their temporal dampening field in place. Then we fight, Goku decided. Defend this timeline until we can find a more permanent solution. Zamasu studied him with those galaxy-filled eyes. You would challenge the full might of the Time Patrol. Even with your power, Son Goku, that would be difficult. Got a better idea? To everyone's surprise, Zamasu smiled. As a matter of fact, I do. He raised his hand, revealing a glowing symbol etched into his palm. During my centuries in the void, I discovered certain weaknesses in the temporal framework the Time Kais established. The symbol projected outward, creating a complex holographic model of intertwining timelines. At certain junctions, pulsing nodes appeared. Temporal anchor points, Zamasu explained. The mechanism by which the Time Patrol maintains control over specific timeline clusters. Disable the anchors. And their ability to manipulate those timelines vanishes, Tawa finished, eyes wide with understanding. They'd have to fall back and re-establish control protocols, which would take days, if not weeks. Precisely. Zamasu closed his hand, dissolving the projection. I can disable the anchors affecting this region, but not alone. The process requires simultaneous action at multiple points. Why would you help us? Kefla asked suspiciously. What's in it for you? A valid question, Zamasu acknowledged. My time in the void showed me the fundamental flaw in my previous philosophy. I sought to impose my vision on reality, just as the Time Kais do. I now believe all conscious beings, mortal or divine, deserve to forge their own paths without predetermined outcomes. That's surprisingly reasonable, Goku said, still wary but intrigued. Don't mistake philosophical alignment for friendship, Son Goku, Zamasu cautioned. I still believe divine beings possess greater understanding than mortals. But enforcement through erasure is. He paused, searching for the right word, inefficient. And ultimately self-defeating. So it's a partnership of convenience, Tawa summarized. For now, Zamasu agreed. The enemy of my enemy, as mortals say. Goku exchanged glances with his companions. Kefla still looked suspicious, but Tawa nodded slightly, her analysis apparently confirming Zamasu's claims about the temporal anchors. All right, Goku decided. We work together to disable these anchors. But first, I need to warn the settlement. I'll go with you, Kefla volunteered. 4 eyes are better than 2. And I shall prepare the anchor disruption, Zamasu said. We will require precisely coordinated action at 4 locations surrounding this timeline cluster. As Kefla and Goku headed toward the settlement, Tawa remained behind with Zamasu, already deep in technical discussion about temporal mechanics. You trust him? Kefla asked quietly as they descended toward the city. Not completely, Goku admitted. But his plan makes sense. And right now, we need all the help we can get. The scarred Bulma's reaction to seeing Goku was a mixture of relief and irritation, a combination he was quite familiar with from his own timeline's version. About time you showed up, she said, leading them to the settlement's command center, a retrofitted town hall building. We've had those time patrol vultures circling for days. They're preparing to attack, Goku explained, quickly outlining what Zamasu had told them. We have a plan to hold them off, but you need to get your people ready in case we need to evacuate. Bulma's cybernetic eye whirred as she processed this information. I've been expecting something like this. We've been preparing defensive measures, but against temporal executioners. She shook her head. We're outmatched. Not if our plan works, Kefla interjected. Disabling the temporal anchors will buy us time. And you're working with Zamasu on this? Bulma looked skeptical. The same being who destroyed multiple universes. Different timeline variant, Goku explained. This one's been evolving in the temporal void for centuries. He's different. Great, Bulma muttered. Time cops above, reformed genocide enthusiast on the side. This just gets better and better. Despite her sarcasm, she immediately began organizing the settlement's defenses, prioritizing protected areas for non-combatants and deploying the limited anti-temporal weaponry they developed. What about Trunks? Goku asked as they worked. Our Trunks? Has there been any word? Bulma's expression softened slightly. Nothing concrete. But our long-range temporal sensors detected a containment transport leaving the battle zone shortly after you escaped. If he was captured rather than. She didn't finish the sentence. He's alive, Goku said with certainty. And we'll get him back. A communication from Tawa interrupted them. Through a temporal projection, she explained the plan Zamasu had developed. The temporal anchor system uses 4-dimensional resonance points to maintain control over this timeline cluster. We need to simultaneously disrupt all 4 to break their hold. Each disruption requires a specific energy signature to counteract the anchor's frequency. Holograms showed the 4 locations surrounding the timeline, points that existed not in physical space but in dimensional barriers between realities. I'll take the northern anchor, Goku volunteered immediately. I'll handle the eastern one, Kefla said. Zamasu will take the southern point, Tawa continued. And I will manage the western anchor. We must coordinate precisely, the disruption must occur within a 3-second window at all locations. What about the settlement's defenses while we're gone? Goku asked. I've provided Ms. Bulma with temporal shielding devices, Tawa replied. They won't hold indefinitely against a full assault, but they'll buy time until the anchors are disrupted. With the plan set, they prepared to depart. Bulma caught Goku's arm before he left. You started something big here, she said, her cybernetic eye scanning his face. These people were supposed to be erased from existence, and now they're building a new life. Whatever happens next, thank you for that. Goku nodded, slightly uncomfortable with the gratitude but understanding its importance. Just keep everyone safe until we get back. That's my job, Bulma replied with a confident smirk that reminded Goku so much of his timeline's version. You just make sure those time cops can't erase us with the push of a button. The northern anchor point existed in a strange dimensional pocket where reality itself seemed thin and malleable. Goku followed Tawa's instructions, using the time ring to access this space between spaces. What he found defied easy description, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with temporal energy, surrounded by swirling equations and symbols that wrote and rewrote themselves constantly. This was the physical manifestation of the Time Patrol's control over this region of reality. Through a temporal communication link, Tawa guided all 4 of them simultaneously. The anchors are protected by automated defense systems. Once we begin the disruption, they'll activate countermeasures. We must maintain our positions regardless of these defenses. What kind of countermeasures? Kefla's voice asked through the link. Temporal Guardians, Zamasu answered before Tawa could. Constructs designed to preserve the anchor's integrity. They'll perceive our disruption as damage and respond accordingly. So we fight while disrupting? Goku clarified. No problem. Not exactly fighting, Tawa corrected. You must maintain your disruption energy flow constantly. Any interruption will reset the process. The Guardians will try to break your concentration. Great, Kefla muttered. Multidimensional multitasking. Begin on my mark, Tawa instructed. Focus your energy through the temporal signatures I've provided. 3, 2, 1. Now. Goku channeled his ki through the pattern Tawa had taught him, directing it at the anchor's core. Immediately, the crystal structure reacted, pulsing with warning energy as systems activated to counter the interference. From the anchor emerged ghostly figures, temporal guardians as Zamasu had called them. They resembled featureless humanoids made of pure chronon energy, moving with unsettling fluidity as they approached Goku. Maintaining his disruption beam with one hand, Goku used the other to fire ki blasts at the approaching guardians. The energy passed through them with minimal effect. Physical attacks won't work. Tawa's voice warned through the link. They exist partially out of phase with normal matter. Now she tells us, Kefla's voice complained. Goku adapted quickly, channeling some of his energy through the time ring while maintaining the disruption beam. The ring responded to his intent, creating a field around him that affected the Guardians, slowing their approach. The ring, he called through the link. It can interact with them. Of course, Zamasu's voice responded. Divine temporal artifacts exist on the same dimensional plane as the Guardians. Across all 4 anchor points, the battle progressed similarly, each of them finding ways to maintain their disruption while fending off increasingly determined Guardians. Kefla used her unique dual nature to create a temporal resonance that confused the Guardians. Zamasu employed divine techniques from his time as a Kai. Tawa utilized her scientific understanding of temporal mechanics. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they maintained the disruption. The anchor crystals began to crack under the sustained assault, temporal energy leaking out in unstable bursts. Almost there, Tawa announced. The anchor integrity is down to 30% across all points. Just as success seemed imminent, a new threat emerged. At Goku's location, a temporal rift opened directly beside the anchor. Through it stepped a familiar figure, the Time Patrol version of Trunks, accompanied by 2 high-ranking Time Patrollers. Son Goku, Patrol Trunks said coldly. Stand down immediately. You're disrupting critical temporal infrastructure. That's kind of the point, Goku replied, not interrupting his disruption beam. Similar interruptions occurred at the other anchor points, elite Time Patrol forces emerging to protect the critical systems. They've detected us, Tawa reported urgently. But we're too close to stop now. 85% disruption achieved. Patrol Trunks raised his hand, revealing a specialized temporal device. Final warning. Stop the disruption or we'll be forced to implement emergency containment protocols. And what happens to the 10,000 refugees if you do that? Goku challenged, continuing the disruption. More necessary pruning of the timeline. Their existence violates fundamental temporal law, one of the other patrollers stated flatly. The Supreme Kai of Time has determined, the Supreme Kai of Time is wrong, Goku interrupted. Those people deserve to live, not be erased because they don't fit some plan. This isn't your decision to make. Patrol Trunks shouted, activating his device. A beam of concentrated temporal energy shot toward Goku, who couldn't dodge without interrupting the disruption. At the last moment, he channeled more power through the time ring, creating a barrier that partially deflected the beam. Still, the impact was enough to stagger him. The disruption beam wavered but didn't break. 90%. Tawa's voice encouraged. Just a little longer. Across all 4 anchor points, similar confrontations unfolded. Kefla fought off 3 patrollers simultaneously, her fusion state giving her an advantage against their temporal weapons. Zamasu held his position with cold determination, divine energy keeping the patrollers at bay. Tawa employed numerous scientific countermeasures against her attackers. 95%. Tawa announced. Prepare for the temporal shockwave when the anchors fail. Patrol Trunks, realizing the anchors were about to collapse, made a desperate move. He teleported directly in front of Goku, placing himself between Goku and the anchor crystal. If you complete this disruption, you'll be classified as a Class Omega temporal criminal, he warned. There will be nowhere in any timeline you can hide. Already figured that, Goku replied, not stopping the disruption. But sometimes doing what's right means breaking the rules. Is that what you told my counterpart before you abandoned him to us? Trunks challenged, a hint of emotion breaking through his professional demeanor. The comment struck home, but Goku maintained his focus. I'm coming for him too. Count on it. 98%. Tao's voice called. Brace yourselves. With a final surge of energy, Goku pushed through Patrol Trunks' interference. The anchor crystal cracked completely, temporal energy erupting outward in a blinding display. Simultaneously, the other 3 anchors collapsed as well. The resulting temporal shockwave knocked everyone off their feet, Goku, Patrol Trunks, and the other patrollers all thrown backward as reality itself seemed to ripple around them. When the energy dissipated, Goku found himself back in normal space, hovering above the refugee settlement. Around him, the same displacement had returned Kefla, Zamasu, and Tawa to the physical world as well. Above them, the Time Patrol ships were visibly affected by the anchor collapse, their temporal stabilizers failing, engines sputtering as they struggled to maintain position. It worked! Kefla exclaimed, flying to join Goku. Look at them scramble. Indeed, the Time Patrol fleet was falling into disarray. Without the anchors, their ability to manipulate this timeline was severely compromised. Tawa appeared beside them, looking both exhausted and triumphant. The anchor disruption was more successful than anticipated. They've lost control of not just this timeline, but an entire cluster of neighboring realities. How long until they can re-establish control? Goku asked. Days at minimum, Tawa replied. Possibly weeks. The feedback from the simultaneous collapse will have damaged their primary systems as well. Zamasu joined them, his expression satisfied but reserved. An effective demonstration of the Time Kai's vulnerability. Their control is not as absolute as they would have others believe. Below, the people of the settlement were emerging from shelters, looking up at the retreating Time Patrol ships with a mixture of disbelief and celebration. So what happens now? Kefla asked. We buy some time, but they'll be back, right? Probably with bigger guns. Now we build, Goku said with determination. Not just defenses, but alternatives. We show everyone there's a better way to manage timelines than erasure and control. An ambitious goal, Zamasu observed. One that will require more than just the 4 of us to achieve. Then we find more allies, Goku replied. People from across timelines who believe in freedom rather than control. And we rescue Trunks. And how exactly do we do that? Kefla challenged. The Time Patrol will have him locked down in their most secure facility. Surprisingly, it was Zamasu who answered. Perhaps not. My observations suggest they would take him to the Temporal Correction Facility, a place designed to realign those who've been temporally corrupted. You know where this facility is? Tawa asked with interest. I know how to find it, Zamasu confirmed. During my time in the void, I mapped many of the Time Patrol's secret installations. Then that's our next move, Goku decided. But first, we make sure this settlement is protected. As they descended to meet with Bulma and the other leaders, the implications of what they'd accomplished began to sink in. They hadn't just defended one timeline, they'd struck a significant blow against the Time Patrol's control system itself. Word would spread across timelines that the Supreme Kai of Time's authority was being challenged. Some would fear this change, others would welcome it. Either way, there was no going back now. The rebellion against Time's controllers had truly begun. News of the anchor disruption spread rapidly throughout the temporal hierarchy. In the Time Nest, Supreme Kai of Time Kranoa called an emergency council of her highest-ranking officers. Four temporal anchors collapsed simultaneously, she reported, her usually cheerful demeanor replaced by cold fury. We've lost control of an entire timeline cluster, including the refugee settlement Son Goku established. The holographic displays showed the damage, not just to the specific anchors, but ripple effects spreading through connected systems. How is this possible? Asked one of the senior Time Kai advisors. The anchors were supposed to be impenetrable. They were attacked with precision and coordination, Kranoa replied. By a team including Son Goku, the Time Breaker Tawa, the Fusion Anomaly Kefla, and... She hesitated, a temporal variant of Zamasu. Murmurs of concern spread through the council chamber. Zamasu? Are you certain? The advisor looked alarmed. All Zamasu variants were supposedly contained after the Zero Mortal Plan incident. This one is different, Kranoa explained. A variant who survived in the temporal void for centuries. Our sensors indicate he's evolved beyond the parameters of the original. And now these four are working together. Another council member looked disturbed by the implication. With access to a time ring and detailed knowledge of our systems. Precisely why this threat must be eliminated immediately, Kranoa stated firmly. I'm enacting Protocol Omega, authorizing unlimited resources to locate and neutralize Son Goku and his associates. Protocol Omega. A Time Patroller commander looked shocked. That hasn't been invoked since the Demigra crisis. Because we haven't faced a threat of this magnitude since then, Kranoa replied. Son Goku with a time ring is dangerous enough. Add Zamasu's divine knowledge, Tawa's scientific expertise, and Kefla's raw power, they could potentially destabilize the entire temporal framework we've maintained for millions of years. What about the captured Time Patroller? Someone asked. The Trunks variant who defected? He will be reconditioned at the Temporal Correction Facility, Kranoa said dismissively. Once he remembers his true loyalty, he may provide valuable insight into Goku's plans. And the refugee timeline? The question came from a younger Time Kai, one who had expressed concerns about erasure protocols in the past. Kranoa's expression hardened. Once control is re-established, that timeline and all its inhabitants will be properly pruned. Their existence sets a dangerous precedent we cannot allow to continue. As the meeting continued with tactical discussions, none of the assembled Time Kais or patrollers noticed a subtle distortion in the corner of the chamber, a temporal observation portal, created through methods unknown to even the Supreme Kai of Time herself. On the other side of this portal, in the realm between, a tall figure in elegant robes observed the proceedings with growing interest. The Grand Priest's usually placid expression showed the faintest trace of concern as he closed the viewing portal with a gesture. So it begins, he murmured to himself. Earlier than anticipated, but perhaps, necessary. He turned to face the infinite expanse of the realm between, a place from which all timelines could be observed but not directly influenced, even by beings of his power. The question remains, he continued thoughtfully, whether Son Goku's rebellion will bring the freedom he envisions, or chaos beyond even his ability to control. With another gesture, the Grand Priest opened a different viewing portal, this one showing Goku and his allies as they work to establish defenses around the refugee settlement. Either way, he concluded, the time for mere observation is ending. Soon, we too must choose our role in what comes next. The portal closed, leaving the Grand Priest alone with his thoughts, and the knowledge that the multiverse stood on the precipice of fundamental change. Chapter 3, The New Order. The Temporal Correction Facility floated in a dimension that existed perpendicular to normal time flow. From the outside, it resembled a massive crystalline fortress suspended in void, its architecture blending ancient Kai designs with futuristic technology. Temporal energy coursed through its walls in pulsing blue streams, creating a barrier that prevented unauthorized entry or exit. Inside one of the countless, reconditioning chambers, Trunks sat motionless in a chair that wasn't really a chair. The device wrapped around his body, connecting directly to his temporal signature, systematically rewriting his experiences and realigning his loyalties. His eyes stared forward, unseeing, as images and sensations flowed through his consciousness, memories of his time with Goku and the refugees being labeled as corruption and replaced with devotion to the Supreme Kai of Time's vision. Temporal alignment at 62%, announced an automated voice. Subject shows diminishing resistance to reconditioning protocols. Outside the chamber, the facility's warden, a tall, thin being with pale blue skin and temporal regulation devices embedded in his flesh, monitored the process with clinical detachment. Increase synchronization by 15%, he ordered. The Supreme Kai of Time wants this one fully reconditioned by the next cycle. He has valuable intelligence about Son Goku's rebellion. As the technicians adjusted the settings, one of them frowned at her console. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual fluctuations in the outer temporal barrier. Possible attempted breach in Sector 7. The warden didn't appear concerned. The facility's defenses are impenetrable without Time Kai authorization. Run a diagnostic on the sensor grid instead. Yes, sir, the technician replied, though her expression remained troubled. It's just, the pattern seems deliberate. Almost like, a massive explosion rocked the facility, alarms blaring throughout the complex. The warden staggered, grasping a console for support. Status report. Now. Multiple breaches detected, another technician shouted over the alarms. Sectors 3, 7, and 12 simultaneously. It's impossible, no one could coordinate an attack that precisely without a time ring, the warden finished grimly. Son Goku has come for his friend. Outside the facility, Goku, Kefla, and Zamasu materialized through a temporal gateway created by Tawa. The time ring on Goku's finger glowed with power as he used it to stabilize their position against the facility's defensive currents. Wow, Kefla whistled, taking in the massive structure. They really don't want visitors. The temporal correction facility exists specifically to realign those who've seen beyond the Time Kai's deception, Zamasu explained. It's perhaps their most heavily guarded installation after the Time Nest itself. Goku's expression was unusually serious. Tawa's distraction explosions will only buy us a few minutes. We need to move. He raised his hand with the time ring, focusing on his connection to Trunks. During the week since their successful defense of the refugee timeline, Goku had been practicing with the ring, learning to sense specific temporal signatures, particularly those he had a strong connection with. Got him, he said after a moment. Central Sector, Level 22. But he feels wrong somehow. Faded. The reconditioning has already begun, Zamasu said grimly. If it completes, your friend will not only be lost to you, he will become your most dangerous hunter. Then we don't let it complete, Goku replied simply. Kefla, you remember the plan? The fused scion nodded, her dual-toned voice resolute. Create chaos, keep their security forces busy, don't get caught. My specialty. Her lips curved in a predatory smile that was pure cauliflower. Zamasu. The temporal variant inclined his head. I will disable their internal barrier systems to facilitate your extraction. Unlike you, I can move between dimensional phases without detection. And I'll get Trunks, Goku finished. We meet back at the extraction point in 15 minutes. If anyone's not there, we don't leave without everyone, Kefla interrupted firmly. No one gets left behind again. Goku nodded, appreciating her loyalty. In the short time since rescuing her, Kefla had become perhaps his most dedicated ally, her dual nature giving her unique insights and her scion spirit matching his own determination. 15 minutes, he confirmed. Let's go. Kefla immediately powered up to her maximum, her energy signature deliberately flaring to attract attention as she launched herself at the facility's main entrance, a massive temporal gateway designed to admit only authorized personnel. Hey time jerks, she shouted at the top of her lungs. Come out and play. Her energy blast against the gateway created a spectacular light show but didn't breach the barrier, exactly as planned. Every sensor and guard in the facility would now focus on the obvious threat at the front door. While Kefla created her diversion, Zamasu simply faded, his form becoming translucent before disappearing entirely as he phased into a dimensional frequency the facility's sensors couldn't detect. Goku used a different approach. With the time ring enhancing his instant transmission, he didn't need to physically move through the facility's barriers. Instead, he locked onto Trunks' temporal signature and simply teleported directly to his location, bypassing all intermediate defenses. He materialized in the reconditioning chamber just as technicians were frantically responding to the facility-wide alert. Their shock at his sudden appearance gave Goku the second he needed to assess the situation, and what he saw made his blood boil. Trunks was strapped to a chair-like device, his body connected to dozens of temporal manipulators. His eyes were open but vacant, glowing with the same blue energy that pulsed through the machinery. "Get away from him," Goku ordered, his voice deadly calm. The technicians froze, recognizing him immediately. One reached for an alarm panel, but Goku was faster, a precise energy blast disabling the console without harming the technician. "I said, get away from him." This time they complied, backing toward the exit. One brave technician spoke up, "You don't understand what you're doing. The reconditioning is at a critical phase. Interrupting it could permanently damage his temporal signature. Compared to erasing who he really is?" Goku challenged, approaching the chair. "I'll take that risk." As the technicians fled, Goku examined the reconditioning device. The technology was far beyond his understanding, complex temporal circuits and Kai magic working together to rewrite Trunks' very perception of reality. "Hang on, Trunks," he said, placing his hand with the time ring directly on the central control node. "I'm getting you out of here." The ring reacted to his intent, its energy countering the reconditioning field. Trunks' body jerked as conflicting temporal energies collided around him. For a terrifying moment, his form seemed to flicker, becoming semi-transparent as if he might fade from existence entirely. Goku poured more energy through the ring, focusing his will. "Come back, Trunks. Remember who you are." The chamber door slid open behind him. Goku spun, ready to defend against security forces, but it was Zamasu who entered. "The defensive grid is temporarily disabled," Zamasu reported. "But it won't," he stopped when he saw what Goku was attempting. "That approach is too crude. You'll destabilize his entire temporal signature." Without waiting for permission, Zamasu moved beside Goku, placing one hand on the reconditioning device and the other on Trunks' forehead. The temporal scars on Zamasu's green skin glowed as he channeled divine energy into the process. "The reconditioning works by creating a quantum superposition of multiple potential states," Zamasu explained, his voice strained with concentration. "We must collapse the wave function back to his true baseline." "In normal words?" Goku asked, not interrupting his own efforts. "We need to remind him who he really is," Zamasu clarified. "Not through machinery, but through genuine connection. Your ring creates the possibility, my divine perception can guide it, but only a true bond can bring him back." Goku nodded, understanding intuitively if not technically. He focused not just on breaking the machine's hold, but on his connection to Trunks, their battles together, their shared determination to protect innocent lives, the trust that had developed between them. "Trunks," he said firmly. "Remember the refugees? The people you chose to help even when it went against everything you were taught. They're thriving now because of you. Because you made the right choice." Something flickered in Trunks' vacant eyes, a hint of recognition, quickly suppressed by the reconditioning field. "More," Zamasu urged. "The connection grows stronger. Remember telling me that I was wrong?" Goku continued. "When I first took the time ring, you stood your ground, spoke your truth even when facing someone stronger. That's the real you, Trunks, someone who stands up for what he believes in." The blue glow in Trunks' eyes flickered again, this time revealing his natural color briefly before the reconditioning reasserted control. "It's working," Zamasu confirmed. "But the facility's automated systems are attempting to compensate. We must break through now or the opportunity will pass. Goku recalled one final memory, the moment Trunks had chosen to stay behind so the others could escape, facing his own counterpart to give them time. The ultimate proof of who Trunks truly was. You saved us, Goku said, his voice more gentle than usual. You stayed behind so we could escape. Not because I asked you to, because that's who you are. Someone who protects others, no matter the cost to himself. That's the Trunks I know. That's who you really are. The reconditioning device sparked and shuddered as Trunks' temporal signature suddenly stabilized, rejecting the artificial patterns being imposed. The blue glow in his eyes faded entirely, replaced by clarity and recognition. Goku? Trunks gasped, his voice hoarse. How did you? No time to explain, Goku interrupted, quickly freeing him from the restraints. Can you move? Trunks nodded, shakily getting to his feet. I think so. They've been, in my head. Trying to make me forget, everything. But they failed, Zamasu observed. Your will prove stronger than their methods. Trunks looked at Zamasu with understandable wariness. You're helping us. Circumstances create unusual alliances, Zamasu replied cryptically. Now we must leave. Security protocols are already adapting to my tampering. As if on cue, alarms blared with renewed urgency. A mechanical voice announced throughout the facility, alert, prisoner extraction in progress. Full containment protocols activated. Chronon suppression field deploying in 3 minutes. That's bad, Goku guessed. Very, Zamasu confirmed. Once the suppression field activates, even your time ring won't function within the facility. They moved quickly through the corridors, Trunks regaining strength with each step. Despite the reconditioning attempt, his muscle memory remained intact. He expertly navigated the facility's layout, guiding them toward the extraction point through less monitored routes. The main security force will be focused on Kefla's diversion, Trunks explained as they moved. But they'll have elite temporal enforcers converging on this sector already. How many? Goku asked. Too many for a direct confrontation, Trunks replied grimly. These aren't regular time patrollers. They're specialists trained specifically to contain temporal criminals. Then we avoid them, Goku decided. Zamasu, can you still phase between dimensions? The divine being shook his head. Not with 2 passengers, and not while the facility is on high alert. Their sensors will be calibrated for dimensional shifting now. They reached an intersection where several corridors met at a large circular chamber. Trunks held up his hand, signaling them to stop. Temporal junction ahead, he whispered. We can't avoid it, all paths to the extraction point pass through it. Goku peered around the corner and immediately understood the problem. The circular chamber was heavily guarded, at least a dozen temporal enforcers positioned strategically around the space, all armed with Chronon weapons. I could try to teleport us past them, Goku suggested, but with the suppression field starting to activate, it's risky. We might materialize inside a wall. Allow me, Zamasu said unexpectedly. I believe a more direct approach is warranted. Before either could question him, Zamasu stepped boldly into the chamber, hands raised non-threateningly. The enforcers immediately trained their weapons on him. Halt! Identify yourself, the lead enforcer commanded. Zamasu smiled serenely. I am Zamasu, temporal variant Z-37, and I come bearing a message from the Supreme Kai of Time herself. The enforcers exchanged confused glances. We've received no communication about a divine messenger, the leader said suspiciously. Naturally, Zamasu replied smoothly. Given the sensitivity of the current situation, official channels could be compromised. Which is why I was sent personally. It was an audacious bluff, but Zamasu's divine presence and absolute confidence made it surprisingly effective. The enforcers hesitated, uncertain how to proceed. What message? The leader finally asked. The Supreme Kai of Time has reason to believe that Son Goku's true target is not the prisoner at all, Zamasu explained, subtly moving further into the room and drawing the enforcer's attention away from the corridor where Goku and Trunks hid. The prisoner extraction is merely a diversion from his actual objective, the facility's temporal core. This caused visible alarm among the enforcers. The temporal core contained the facility's most sensitive and powerful technology. All available units are to converge on the core immediately, Zamasu continued authoritatively. I have been tasked with securing this junction personally. We've received no such orders through command channels, the leader insisted, though with less certainty. Zamasu's expression hardened, his divine aura flaring subtly. Question me again, enforcer, and you may explain your insubordination to the Supreme Kai of Time herself. The fate of this entire facility is at stake. The combination of urgency, authority, and the subtle intimidation of his divine presence worked. The lead enforcer gave a reluctant nod. Squad, move out. Secure the temporal core. As the enforcers rushed toward another exit, Zamasu maintained his authoritative posture until they had all left. Then he calmly turned toward the corridor where Goku and Trunks waited. The path is clear, he called softly. Though I doubt my deception will last long. They hurried across the junction chamber, Trunks looking at Zamasu with newfound respect. That was impressive, he admitted. Using their own hierarchy against them. Millennia in the void provided ample opportunity to study temporal authority structures, Zamasu replied with a hint of amusement. Their rigid devotion to chain of command is both strength and weakness. They continued toward the extraction point, the facility's automated voice now counting down to the suppression field activation, Chronon suppression field deploying in 60 seconds. All temporal operations will be restricted. We're cutting it close, Trunks warned as they rushed down a final corridor. The extraction point, a maintenance bay near the facility's outer boundary, came into view ahead. Through the large viewport, they could see Kefla still creating chaos outside, drawing fire from defensive turrets while effortlessly dodging their attacks. 30 seconds to suppression field activation. They reached the maintenance bay doors, but found them sealed with a temporal lock that even Trunks couldn't bypass. Stand back, Goku said, channeling energy through the time ring. The lock responded to the ring's authority, circuits rearranging as the massive doors slowly began to open. Too slow, Zamasu observed. The field will activate before we can exit. 15 seconds to suppression field activation. Trunks looked around desperately, then pointed to a small service hatch. There. Emergency evacuation port. The three of them rushed to the hatch, barely large enough for one person at a time. 10 seconds. You first, Goku insisted, pushing Trunks toward the hatch. But, no arguments. Go. Trunks reluctantly complied, squeezing through the hatch into the space beyond. 5 seconds. Zamasu gestured for Goku to go next. Your ring is essential to our cause. Go. 4, 3. Goku hesitated only briefly before diving through the hatch. 2. He turned back immediately, reaching through to grab Zamasu's arm just as the countdown reached 1. A wave of temporal energy surged through the facility as the suppression field activated. Zamasu's form flickered at the boundary between inside and outside, caught in the field's effect. With a final desperate pull, Goku yanked Zamasu through the hatch just as the field fully engaged, sealing all temporal access points throughout the facility. They tumbled onto a narrow maintenance platform on the facility's exterior, the void of dimensional space swirling around them. Kefla spotted them immediately, breaking off her diversion to fly toward their position. Cutting it kind of close, aren't you? She called as she approached. Kawa can't hold the extraction portal much longer. Indeed, 100 meters away, a swirling gateway pulsed with increasing instability, their only way back to the sanctuary. Time to go, Goku said, helping both Trunks and Zamasu to their feet. Kefla, take Trunks, he's still recovering. As they flew toward the portal, the facility's external defenses reoriented toward them, temporal disruptor beams cutting through the void. Kefla carried Trunks while dodging the attacks with impressive agility. Goku and Zamasu deflected what they couldn't dodge, their combined energy creating a protective shield around the group. They reached the portal just as it began to collapse, temporal energy fluctuating wildly as the facility's countermeasures attempted to seal it. One by one they dove through, Kefla with Trunks, then Zamasu, and finally Goku, who had to force his way through the nearly closed opening. The sensation of temporal transit washed over them, that peculiar stretching feeling as they passed between dimensional barriers, and then they were tumbling onto the solid ground of Tao's sanctuary, the portal snapping closed behind them. For a moment, no one spoke. They lay on the floor, breathing heavily, processing the narrow escape. Then Kefla started laughing, a genuine, relieved sound that was somehow both Caulifla's brash cackle and Kale's softer giggle simultaneously. That, she declared between laughs, was way too close. Trunks managed a weak smile. Feels like old times. Except usually I'm the one doing the rescuing. Goku grinned, the tension of the mission finally releasing. Hey, everybody needs rescuing sometimes. Even time-traveling sword guys. Even Zamasu's normally stoic expression softened slightly. An efficient operation, despite the complications. Tawa approached, looking both relieved and impressed. You actually succeeded. The temporal correction facility has never been breached before. She examined Trunks with scientific curiosity. And you managed to reverse the reconditioning process. Remarkable. Trunks stood shakily, determination overcoming his physical weakness. They tried to make me forget what I saw, what the Time Patrol really does. But it didn't stick. He looked at Goku gratefully. Thanks to you. Not just me, Goku acknowledged, nodding toward Zamasu. We all did our part. A subtle shift in the sanctuary's energy alerted them to a new arrival. The scarred Bulma from the refugee timeline materialized on a transport pad, her expression urgent. Reunion's over, she announced without preamble. We've got trouble. Big trouble. The refugee settlement? Goku asked immediately. Bulma shook her head. Safe for now. This is something else. She activated a holographic display from her cybernetic arm, showing a massive energy disturbance forming in the void between universes. This appeared an hour ago and has been growing exponentially. My instruments can't even classify it. Tao moved to examine the readings, her expression growing increasingly concerned. This is a Class 10 temporal convergence. And that means? Kefla prompted. It means, Zamasu answered gravely, that the highest authorities have taken notice of our activities. This convergence is a direct response from beyond the Time Kai's jurisdiction. The Grand Priest, Goku realized, recalling Whisa's explanations of cosmic hierarchy. He's making a move. Zamasu nodded. The angel hierarchy has maintained neutrality in temporal matters for eons. If they're intervening now, then everything's changed, Tawa finished. The entire cosmic balance is shifting. Trunks looked around at their concerned faces. Someone want to catch me up? What's been happening while I was away? Goku quickly summarized the events of the past week, their defense of the refugee timeline, the disabling of the temporal anchors, and the growing movement across timelines as word spread of their resistance against the Time Patrol's control. It's not just us anymore, he explained. People in dozens of timelines are standing up, refusing to accept the Time Kai's authority. The refugee settlement has become a symbol, proof that timelines can exist outside their control. Which is exactly why the angels would finally intervene, Zamasu added. Our actions have triggered a fundamental shift in the multiverse's power balance. So what do we do? Kefla asked the question on everyone's mind. Run. Hide. Fight. Before anyone could answer, the sanctuary's sensors blared in alarm. The temporal convergence had suddenly expanded, its energy pattern shifting. It's no longer just forming, Tawa reported, reading the data. It's reaching. Specifically for us. Can your shields hold? Trunks asked urgently. Tao shook her head. Not against this level of power. Nothing could. The air in the center of the sanctuary began to shimmer, reality folding in on itself as a gateway unlike any they'd seen before took shape. This wasn't a crude temporal portal or even a divine transportation method, it was as if reality itself had decided to create a doorway. From this impossible opening stepped the Grand Priest, his placid smile and perfect posture belying the incomprehensible power he represented. The very air around him seemed to clarify, as if his presence demanded a higher level of reality. Greetings, he said simply, his voice somehow both gentle and absolute. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. For a moment, no one moved or spoke. The presence of the Grand Priest, chief attendant to Zeno and highest authority among the angels, was so unexpected and overwhelming that even Zamasu appeared momentarily stunned. Goku recovered first, stepping forward with characteristic directness. Hi. Guess our little rebellion caught your attention, huh? The Grand Priest's smile didn't waver. Indeed, son Goku. Though, little, hardly seems an appropriate descriptor for actions that have reshaped the fundamental architecture of multiple timeline clusters. His gaze moved to the time ring on Goku's finger. Particularly when those actions involve artifacts reserved exclusively for Supreme Kais. Goku didn't hide the ring or apologize for having it. It showed me the truth about what the Time Kais have been doing, manipulating timelines, erasing entire realities just to maintain control. Yes, the Grand Priest acknowledged with a slight nod. The Supreme Kai of Time's methods have become rather heavy-handed over the millennia. A natural evolution of any system that prioritizes order above all else, I suppose. This casual admission caught everyone by surprise. You know. Trunks asked incredulously. About the erasures? The manipulations? And you've allowed it? The Grand Priest turned his attention to Trunks, studying him with gentle curiosity. The cosmic hierarchy maintains careful separation of authorities, young Time Patroller. The angels observe but do not interfere in matters of timeline management, just as Time Kais do not dictate the actions of destroyers, and destroyers do not challenge Zeno's will. That sounds like a convenient excuse, Kefla said boldly, though she remained tense, clearly aware of the power difference. Instead of taking offense, the Grand Priest actually chuckled. Perhaps it is. Systems established at the dawn of the multiverse rarely adapt with perfect efficiency. His expression grew more serious. Which brings me to the purpose of my visit. He gestured elegantly, and reality shifted around them. Suddenly they stood not in Tao's sanctuary but in a vast space that seemed to exist between dimensions. Streams of temporal energy flowed around them like rivers of light, each representing countless timelines and possibilities. This is the nexus of all realities, the Grand Priest explained. A place from which all timelines can be observed in their natural state, unfiltered by the Time Kais manipulations. He waved his hand again, and certain streams glowed brighter. These are the timelines your actions have directly affected, the refugee settlement, the disabled anchor points, and dozens of others where your example has inspired resistance against temporal control. The highlighted streams pulsed with vibrant energy, noticeably different from the more regulated flows around them. They're healthier, Goku observed with surprise. More alive somehow. Precisely, the Grand Priest confirmed. Contrary to the Time Kais insistence, timelines naturally seek balance when allowed to develop without excessive interference. Your instincts were correct, son Goku, protection rather than control is the more sustainable approach. Zamasu stepped forward, his normally composed features showing genuine confusion. If you recognize this truth, why have the angels permitted the Time Kais methods for so long? The Grand Priest regarded Zamasu with particular interest. An excellent question from one who has observed time from the void. The answer is complex, but essentially, cosmic evolution requires cycles. The Time Kais approach was necessary for a period, a counterbalance to the chaotic expansion that characterized the early multiverse. But that period has ended, Tawa surmised, her scientific mind quickly grasping the implication. Indeed, the Grand Priest nodded. The multiverse has matured beyond the need for such rigid control. Yet institutions rarely relinquish power voluntarily, particularly when they believe their methods are essential for continued existence. So why are you here? Goku asked directly. To stop us? Help us? Just watch. None of the above, the Grand Priest replied with enigmatic calm. I am here to inform you that your actions have triggered what we angels call a convergence nexus, a cosmic inflection point where multiple possible futures collapse into a single inevitability. He waved his hand again, and the streams of light around them began to shift, coalescing toward a single point ahead. In simple terms, he continued, the multiverse stands at a crossroads. The next actions taken by you and your allies will determine not just the fate of individual timelines, but the fundamental nature of temporal reality going forward. No pressure, Kefla muttered sarcastically. The Grand Priest smiled at her. Precisely the opposite, I'm afraid. The pressure is immense, which is why I felt compelled to provide context for the choices that lie ahead. Goku crossed his arms, processing this information. You're saying whatever we do next is really important. But you're not telling us what to do. I cannot, the Grand Priest replied simply. Angels may observe and occasionally guide, but direct intervention in moments of cosmic significance is forbidden. The choice must be yours. What about the Supreme Kai of Time? Trunks asked. Is she aware of this? Convergence Nexus? She is, the Grand Priest confirmed. And her response has been predictable. At this moment, she is mobilizing every resource at her disposal for a final solution to what she terms the temporal insurgency. A full assault, Tawa translated grimly. Not just on us, but on every timeline that's broken free of their control. Beginning with the refugee settlement, the Grand Priest added. As the most visible symbol of successful resistance. Goku's expression hardened. Those people have done nothing wrong. They're just trying to live their lives. From our perspective, yes, the Grand Priest agreed. From the Supreme Kai of Times, their very existence represents an intolerable challenge to the established order, proof that her authority can be successfully defied. The implications settled heavily on the group. This wasn't just about their small rebellion anymore, thousands of innocent lives hung in the balance, and potentially the future nature of time itself. How long do we have? Goku asked. The Time Patrol fleet will reach the refugee timeline in approximately 12 hours, the Grand Priest replied. Their temporal executioners are already preparing erasure protocols. 12 hours to prepare a defense against the entire Time Patrol. Trunks looked grim. Even with all of us together, those aren't good odds. Perhaps defense is not the only option, Zamasu suggested, his expression thoughtful. If the Supreme Kai of Time has committed her forces to this assault, the time nest itself would be relatively unprotected. Tawa's eyes widened as she grasped his meaning. A counterattack. Strike at the heart of their power while their forces are deployed elsewhere. That's, actually brilliant, Kefla admitted, looking at Zamasu with newfound respect. Cut off the head instead of fighting all the limbs. Goku wasn't immediately convinced. The time nest will still have defenses. And even if we somehow reach the Supreme Kai of Time, it's not about defeating her personally, Trunks interrupted, a plan clearly forming in his mind. It's about reaching the time tree, the central anchor for the entire temporal authority structure. If we could access it directly, we could rewrite the rules, Tawa finished excitedly. Not seize control ourselves, but establish a new framework, one that protects timelines without controlling them. Exactly what I saw in that golden scroll, Goku said, the pieces finally connecting. Not overthrowing the system, but transforming it. The Grand Priest observed their planning with an unreadable expression. An ambitious strategy. The time tree has never been directly accessed by anyone outside the Time Kai hierarchy. But it's possible. Goku pressed. With a time ring, the proper knowledge, and considerable power. The Grand Priest paused thoughtfully. Yes, it is theoretically possible. Then that's our plan, Goku decided. Towa and Trunks will lead the defense of the refugee settlement with whatever forces we can gather. Zamasu, Kefla and I will strike at the time nest while their main forces are committed elsewhere. A two-pronged approach, Zamasu nodded approvingly. Tactically sound. Kefla punched her palm enthusiastically. Finally, taking the fight to them instead of just reacting. Trunks looked concerned but didn't argue. The refugees will need every advantage we can give them. With Towa's knowledge and the defenses we've already built. We'll hold, Towa assured him. Long enough for your mission to succeed. The Grand Priest watched this exchange with that same enigmatic smile. I see you've made your choice. Is it the right one? Goku asked directly. That, the Grand Priest replied, is something even I cannot know with certainty. The nature of a true convergence nexus is that multiple valid paths exist. What matters is not which path is chosen, but how it is walked. With another elegant gesture, he returned them to Towa's sanctuary. The transition was so smooth that they barely felt it happen. My role as observer concludes here, the Grand Priest said, moving toward the same impossible doorway through which he had arrived. The choices and consequences that follow belong to you alone. Wait, Goku called before he could leave. You came all this way just to tell us about this convergence thing. Why? What's your stake in all this? The Grand Priest paused, considering the question. When he answered, his voice carried a hint of something almost like hope. The angels have watched the time-Kais methods grow increasingly rigid for millions of years. We have observed as potentially vibrant timelines were extinguished simply for deviating from predetermined patterns. We have remained neutral because that was our assigned role. His eyes met Goku's directly. But neutrality in the face of genuine imbalance eventually becomes complicity. Perhaps it is time for a new approach, one that neither we nor the time-Kais could initiate ourselves, bound as we are by ancient restrictions. With those cryptic words, he stepped through the doorway, which closed behind him as if it had never existed. For a long moment, no one spoke, each processing the implications of what had just occurred. Finally, Trunks broke the silence. Did the Grand Priest just, tacitly endorse our rebellion against the Supreme Kai of Time? I believe he did, Zamasu confirmed, sounding equally surprised. The cosmic hierarchy may be more flexible than previously understood. Doesn't matter, Goku said decisively. We have 12 hours to prepare for the biggest fight of our lives. The Grand Priest gave us information, but the rest is up to us. He looked around at his assembled allies, Towa the brilliant scientist, Trunks the principled warrior, Kefla the unstoppable fusion, and Zamasu the divine observer. An unlikely group, united by a shared belief that freedom to choose was more important than predetermined order. Let's get to work, he said. We've got a multiverse to save. The refugee settlement transformed into an armed camp as news of the impending Time Patrol assault spread. Under Trunks and Towa's guidance, defensive systems were reinforced, evacuation protocols established, and every able-bodied fighter prepared for battle. The scarred Bulma led the technical preparations, retrofitting salvaged and invented technologies to counter temporal weapons. They'll try to establish a containment field before beginning erasure procedures, she explained as she distributed modified shields to the defense teams. These should disrupt their targeting, at least temporarily. Meanwhile, Goku, Zamasu, and Kefla prepared for their infiltration of the time nest. Towa provided everything she knew about its defenses, while Trunks contributed insider knowledge of patrol patterns and access protocols. The time tree is housed in the central chamber, Trunks explained, projecting a holographic map. Normally it's guarded by elite Chronon enforcers and multiple barrier systems, but if the Supreme Kai of Time commits fully to the assault on the settlement, most of those forces will be deployed elsewhere, Zamasu finished. Still, we should expect significant resistance. The time nest is the seat of their power, they won't leave it truly vulnerable. As preparations continued, Goku took a moment to step outside Tao's sanctuary, finding a quiet spot to look out at the swirling temporal energies that surrounded their hidden dimension. The time ring on his finger pulsed gently, almost as if responding to his thoughts. He sensed Kefla approaching before he heard her. The fused scion had a distinctive energy signature, two powerful forces perfectly balanced. "Nervous?" she asked, coming to stand beside him. Goku considered the question. "Not nervous exactly. Just thinking." "That's dangerous," Kefla teased, her dual-toned voice carrying both Caulifla's brashness and Kale's gentler humor. He smiled slightly. "Yeah, not usually my strong suit. So what's on your mind?" Goku looked down at the time ring. "All this started because I couldn't accept the way the time kais control everything. But now we're planning to change the whole system ourselves. Isn't that just replacing one control with another?" Kefla considered this thoughtfully. "I don't think so. You're not trying to control timelines, you're trying to free them. Big difference." "I hope you're right," Goku replied. "Power can change people. I've seen it happen." "Maybe to others," Kefla said with surprising conviction. "Not to you. You've had the power to destroy planets since I've known you, but you use it to protect them instead." Goku appreciated her confidence but wasn't entirely convinced. "This is different. The time ring, the time tree, they're not just about physical power. They're about controlling the rules of reality itself. Which is exactly why it needs to be someone like you," Kefla insisted. "Someone who doesn't want to control others, who just wants everyone to have a fair chance." Before Goku could respond, Trunks appeared in the doorway. "It's time," he called. "Final briefing before we separate." They gathered one last time in Tao's central chamber, the mood solemn but determined. The plan had been refined and finalized, two teams with two crucial missions, perfectly synchronized. "The Time Patrol fleet will reach the refugee timeline in approximately 3 hours, Tao reported. "Our defenses are as ready as they can be, but we can't withstand a prolonged assault. Your mission to the time nest must succeed quickly. The timing is critical," Trunks added. "Once you've secured the time tree, you'll need to establish a new temporal framework immediately. Any gap in the regulatory structure could cause catastrophic instability across all timelines." Zamasu nodded. "I have studied the necessary procedures during my time in the void. With the time ring as a focus and the tree as an anchor, we can implement a new approach, one that protects without controlling." "And if the Supreme Kai of Time herself shows up?" Kefla asked the question no one had directly addressed. A brief silence fell over the group. "We try to reason with her," Goku said finally. "Show her there's a better way. But if she won't listen, then we do what's necessary," Zamasu finished firmly. "The future of countless timelines outweighs the authority of a single Kai, no matter how ancient." Final preparations were made. Tawa created specialized temporal shields for the assault team, while Bulma provided communication devices that would function across dimensional barriers. Trunks and the defenders would depart first for the refugee settlement, while Goku's team would time their infiltration of the time nest to coincide with the patrol fleet's arrival at the settlement. As the groups prepared to separate, Trunks approached Goku one last time. "I still can't believe we're doing this," he said, his expression a mixture of determination and lingering doubt. "Infiltrating the time nest, rewriting the rules of temporal authority. Having second thoughts?" Goku asked. Trunks shook his head. "No. I've seen enough to know the current system is wrong. It's just big. Bigger than anything we've faced before. Bigger than Frisia. Cell. Bu." Goku smiled. "We handled those okay. This isn't just fighting a villain," Trunks pointed out. "It's changing how reality itself functions." "I know," Goku acknowledged more seriously. "That's why we're not just destroying the old system. We're creating something better. Trunks nodded, seeming reassured. Good luck. We'll hold the line at the settlement as long as we can. They clasped arms in the warrior's gesture, then Trunks joined Tawa and the defense team as they activated their transport to the refugee timeline. See you on the other side, Tawa said, giving the assault team a final nod before the transport energies enveloped them, sending them to their destination. With the defense team gone, Goku turned to his companions. We have 3 hours before we move. Get whatever rest you can. Once we enter the time nest, there's no turning back. As Kefla and Zamasu departed to make their final preparations, Goku remained in the central chamber, studying the holographic model of the time nest one last time. The heart of temporal authority, a place he had visited only briefly before his rebellion began, now the target of the most important mission of his life. The time ring pulsed on his finger, almost as if it sensed the coming confrontation. Whatever happened in the next few hours would reshape the multiverse forever. No pressure indeed. The Time Patrol fleet arrived at the refugee timeline with overwhelming force, hundreds of ships equipped with temporal weaponry, led by the flagship Kronos, the Supreme Kai of Time's personal vessel. From the settlement's defensive perimeter, Trunks watched through enhanced viewers as the fleet took up attack formation. They brought everything, he muttered to Tawa, who stood beside him at the command center. Erasure cannons, chronon disruptors, temporal containment generators, they're not taking any chances. As expected, Tawa replied calmly, monitoring the settlement's shield systems. The Supreme Kai of Time can't afford another failure against these refugees. They've become too powerful a symbol. Around them, the settlement's defenders prepared for battle. In the weeks since their rescue, the refugees had built not just a functioning society but an impressive defense force, combining technology salvaged from their original timeline with innovations from their new reality. The scarred Bulma had proven an exceptional leader, turning trauma and loss into determination and ingenuity. Incoming transmission, a communications officer announced. From the patrol flagship. Trunks nodded. Put it through. A holographic image appeared, not the Supreme Kai of Time herself, but the other Trunks, the loyal Time Patroller version who had opposed them from the beginning. Attention refugee settlement, Patrol Trunks announced formally. By authority of the Supreme Kai of Time, this timeline has been designated for immediate correction due to critical temporal contamination. Surrender now, and your transition will be painless. Trunks stepped forward to respond, facing his counterpart directly. We both know there's no painless transition. You're here to erase an entire timeline of innocent people who just want to exist. Patrol Trunks's expression hardened. Their existence violates fundamental temporal law. They were rescued from a condemned timeline in direct contravention of established protocols. Protocols that are wrong, Trunks countered. These people have built a thriving community. They harm no one. Their timeline is stable. That's not your determination to make, Patrol Trunks replied. The Supreme Kai of Time is making a mistake, Trunks interrupted. One that you'll have to live with if you go through with this attack. Can you really justify erasing 10,000 innocent lives just to maintain control? For a brief moment, something like doubt flickered across Patrol Trunks's face. But it passed quickly, replaced by resolute determination. You have 30 minutes to surrender the timeline for proper correction, he stated flatly. After that, we begin containment procedures. Any resistance will be met with maximum force. The transmission ended, leaving Trunks staring at empty air. Well, that went about as expected, Tawa remarked dryly. Trunks turned to the command staff. Full defensive protocols. Get all non-combatants to the sheltered zones. Active fighters to their designated positions. He glanced at Tawa. How long do we need to hold them off? At least 2 hours, she replied. Enough time for Goku's team to reach and secure the time tree. Trunks nodded grimly. Then that's what we'll do. No matter the cost. In the void between dimensions, Goku, Kefla, and Zamasu prepared for their infiltration of the time nest. Tawa had created a specialized gateway that would deposit them near the outer perimeter, hopefully bypassing the most obvious detection systems. Remember, Goku reminded his companions, our goal isn't to fight everyone we see. We get to the time tree as quickly and quietly as possible. Quietly isn't exactly my specialty, Kefla admitted with a grin. But I'll do my best. Zamasu adjusted his temporal shielding device, a creation of Tawa's that would partially mask his divine energy signature from the nest sensors. The time ring should grant us limited access to lower security areas. For the rest, we may need to be creative. Their communicator chimed, a signal from the refugee settlement. The Time Patrol fleet has arrived, Trunks' voice reported. In force. Battle will commence within 30 minutes. Then it's time, Goku decided. The Supreme Kai of Time will be focused on the assault. This is our best chance to reach the tree. Tawa had programmed the gateway to activate in conjunction with the time ring's energy. Goku channeled power through the ring, feeling it resonate with the portal technology. The gateway expanded, showing a shimmering view of the time nest's outer grounds. Ready? He asked, looking at his companions. Kefla cracked her knuckles, her dual-toned voice resolute. Born ready. Zamasu nodded silently, his galaxy-filled eyes focused on the task ahead. Together, they stepped through the gateway, leaving the safety of Tawa's sanctuary for the heart of their enemy's power. The time nest appeared strangely deserted as they emerged from the portal. The usually bustling grounds with time patrollers coming and going was nearly empty, just as they'd hoped. The Supreme Kai of Time had indeed committed most of her forces to the assault on the refugee timeline. This way, Zamasu directed softly, pointing toward a less-traveled path that wound behind the main administrative buildings. The central chamber housing the time tree is accessible through the historical archives. They moved quickly but cautiously, using the ring's temporal signature to bypass basic security measures. When they encountered the occasional patrol, Zamasu's ability to temporarily phase them between dimensional frequencies allowed them to pass undetected. As they approached the archives, a massive crystal and stone structure containing the collective knowledge of all timelines, Kefla suddenly tensed. Someone's coming, she whispered. Multiple someones. Strong. They ducked behind a decorative Kronen fountain as a group of elite time patrollers hurried past, senior officers discussing deployment strategies for the assault on the refugee timeline. The Supreme Kai has authorized temporal executioners to begin full erasure once containment is established, one was saying. No exceptions, no survivors. Isn't that extreme? Another questioned cautiously. There are civilians, children, direct orders, the first responded firmly. This timeline represents a direct challenge to temporal authority. The Supreme Kai wants to make an example of it. As the patrollers moved out of earshot, Goku's expression darkened. We need to move faster. They're not just planning to capture the settlement, they're going to erase everyone. The archives are just ahead, Zamasu pointed. From there, we can access the lower level that connects to the central chamber. They continued forward with renewed urgency, reaching the archives without further incident. Inside, the cavernous space stretched seemingly forever, with countless scrolls and crystal data storage devices arranged in perfect order. This place always creeped me out, Kefla muttered, looking at the endless records. All these lives, all these timelines, catalogued like specimens in a collection. Knowledge itself is not the problem, Zamasu observed. It's how that knowledge is used, to understand and protect, or to control and manipulate. Goku was less interested in philosophy than action. Where's the access point to the lower level? Zamasu led them through the archive's winding paths to a restricted section near the back. Unlike the rest of the facility, this area was protected by active security measures, energy barriers and Kronen detection fields. The time ring should grant us access, Zamasu explained. Place it against the central panel. Goku did as instructed, pressing the ring to the security console. The ancient artifact pulsed with energy, interfacing with the time nest systems. After a tense moment, the barrier shimmered and deactivated. Kefla looked impressed. Guess they never considered someone unauthorized would get hold of a time ring. The arrogance of established power, Zamasu remarked. They believe their own rules are inviolable. Beyond the barrier lay a spiral staircase descending deep below the time nest's main structures. Unlike the polished, almost sterile architecture above, these passages were ancient, carved from some strange material that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. We're entering the original foundations, Zamasu explained as they descended. Built by the first-time Kais, before the current regulatory approach was established. You mean time wasn't always controlled the way it is now? Goku asked, surprised. No, Zamasu confirmed. The earliest time Kais were observers and nurturers of timelines, not controllers. The shift toward rigid management came later, as the multiverse expanded and temporal conflicts increased. The staircase eventually opened into a vast underground chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The ceiling arched impossibly high, seemingly containing actual stars and nebulae within its expanse. The floor was a perfect mirror, reflecting everything above it with flawless clarity. And in the center stood the time tree. It was both more and less than Goku remembered from his brief glimpse during his first visit to the time nest. More, because now he could perceive its true nature, not just a physical object but a living manifestation of temporal reality itself, its branches extending into dimensions beyond normal perception. Less, because the tree appeared somehow diminished, its natural vibrancy constrained by the regulatory systems that had been built around it over the millennia. It's beautiful, Kefla whispered, momentarily awed by the spectacle. And imprisoned, Zamasu added, his divine senses perceiving what the others could not. The current temporal management system doesn't work with the tree's natural energy, it restrains it, forces it into predetermined patterns. Goku approached the tree slowly, the time ring on his finger resonating strongly with its energy. As he drew closer, he could see countless tiny lights among its branches, each representing a timeline, a reality where beings lived and died, fought and loved, experienced all the joys and sorrows of existence. Some shone brightly, while others flickered weakly. Some were interconnected by delicate strands of energy, while others stood isolated. And some, too many, were dark, extinguished by the time patrol's corrections. This is it, Goku said softly. The heart of everything. As they moved toward the tree, a voice suddenly echoed through the chamber, I wondered if you would come here. They spun to find the Supreme Kai of Time herself standing at the chamber's entrance. Kranoa's small form belied the power she commanded, the authority of countless ages as Time's designated guardian. You're supposed to be leading the assault on the refugee timeline, Kefla said, immediately dropping into a fighting stance. Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate your plan? Kranoa replied, walking calmly into the chamber. The moment the Grand Priest involved himself, I knew something fundamental had changed. The assault on the refugee timeline continues without me, I'm needed here, to protect what truly matters. You mean to protect your control, Goku countered, stepping forward. We know the truth, Kranoa. We've seen what you've been doing. Erasing timelines, manipulating events, deciding who gets to exist and who doesn't. Kranoa sighed, looking genuinely tired for the first time since Goku had known her. You still don't understand. Time is not some gentle stream. That can be left to flow wherever it wishes. Without regulation, without careful management, the entire multiverse would collapse into chaos. That's not true, Zamasu interjected, his divine authority matching hers. I have observed timelines from the void between realities. They naturally seek balance when allowed to interact properly. Your management has become destructive control. You would lecture me on destructive control? Kranoa's eyes flashed with anger as she addressed Zamasu. You, whose variants have destroyed entire universes in pursuit of their twisted vision. I am not those variants, Zamasu replied calmly. Just as these refugees are not the threats you claim they are. Individual timelines deserve to be judged on their own merits, not erased because they deviate from your predetermined patterns. Klonoa's attention shifted to the time ring on Goku's finger. That ring was never meant for mortal hands. Its power, combined with your natural temporal nexus properties, makes you dangerously unpredictable, Son Goku. Maybe unpredictable is exactly what the multiverse needs right now, Goku replied, moving closer to the time tree. Something different than the same control that's been in place for millions of years. And you believe yourself qualified to make that determination? Klonoa challenged. A scion who hasn't even lived a century, presuming to restructure systems established at the dawn of creation. I know right from wrong, Goku said simply. And erasing innocent people just because they don't fit your plan is wrong. He turned toward the time tree, the ring pulsing more intensely as he approached its trunk. Stop! Klonoa commanded, her divine power flaring. Touch the tree with that ring, and you risk collapsing every timeline in existence. He doesn't, Zamasu contradicted her. The time ring was created from the same essence as the tree itself. Together, they can establish a new framework, one that protects without controlling. It's too dangerous, Klonoa insisted, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. The existing regulatory systems took millennia to perfect. Perfect? Kefla laughed harshly. You call erasing entire realities perfect? Those aren't just statistics, they're people, worlds, entire universes wiped out because they didn't follow your script. While they argued, Goku had continued moving toward the tree. Now he stood directly before it, close enough to touch its trunk. Wait, Klonoa said, her tone shifting from commanding to pleading. You don't understand what's at stake. Without proper regulation, temporal conflicts will resurface. Reality branches will collide. The suffering would be immeasurable. Goku paused, looking back at her. I'm not destroying regulation. I'm changing how it works. Protection instead of control. Guidance instead of erasure. Based on what? A feeling? A vision from a golden scroll? Klonoa shook her head. Temporal management requires precision, experience, and compassion, Goku interrupted. Which is what's been missing. Before Klonoa could respond, alarms suddenly blared throughout the time nest. A voice announced, Emergency alert. Temporal collapse detected in refugee timeline sector. Containment failure in progress. Klonoa's eyes widened in genuine shock. No, they've initiated full erasure protocol. But something's wrong. What's happening? Goku demanded. The temporal executioners. Klonoa seemed momentarily lost for words. They've encountered unexpected resistance. The erasure process is destabilizing. If it continues unchecked, it could create a cascading collapse affecting multiple timeline clusters. You mean they could accidentally destroy more than just the refugee timeline? Kefla asked, horrified. Far more, Klonoa confirmed. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of connected realities could be drawn into the collapse. Then stop them. Goku shouted. Call off the attack. I can't, Klonoa admitted. Once the executioners initiate the protocol, it can only be terminated from within the command vessel. And even then, the process may have progressed too far to fully contain. Zamasu's expression grew grave. There is another way. The time tree could stabilize the affected regions, preventing the collapse from spreading. Only if properly directed, Klonoa countered. Without the existing regulatory framework, that framework is what caused this crisis in the first place. Kefla snapped. Goku had heard enough. With sudden determination, he pressed his hand, the one bearing the time ring, directly against the trunk of the time tree. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged through his body as the ring connected with its parent source. Visions flooded his consciousness, not just of individual timelines but of the entire temporal structure of the multiverse. He saw the patterns of connection, the natural flows of causality, the points where timelines naturally converged and diverged. And he saw the artificial constraints imposed by the time-Kais management system, well-intentioned originally, but grown rigid and destructive over the eons. Goku. Kefla called, her voice sounding distant through the rush of temporal energy. Are you okay? He couldn't answer. The connection was too intense, too all-encompassing. Through the tree, he could sense the crisis in the refugee timeline, the executioner's erasure protocol spinning out of control, threatening to tear a hole in the fabric of reality itself. Without conscious thought, Goku directed the tree's energy toward the threatened timelines, instinctively creating a stabilizing field around them. Not controlling, not erasing, simply supporting, reinforcing the natural resilience of reality itself. What is he doing? Kranoa asked, watching in astonishment as the tree began to pulse with new vitality, its branches extending and shifting. What you should have been doing all along, Zamasu answered. Working with time's natural patterns, not against them. Through his connection with the tree, Goku could now sense every timeline affected by the Time Patrol's control. With the time ring as a focus, he began the process of transformation, not destroying the regulatory systems entirely, but restructuring them from within, shifting from control to protection, from erasure to support. The effort was tremendous, taxing even his incredible power. Sweat poured down his face as he maintained the connection, guided partly by instinct and partly by the tree itself, which seemed to respond eagerly to this new approach. It's working, Kefla reported, watching the emergency displays. The collapse in the refugee sector is stabilizing. Impossible, Kranoa whispered, though the evidence was undeniable. He's actually redirecting the entire temporal framework. As the immediate crisis stabilized, Goku faced his greatest challenge, establishing a new foundation for temporal management going forward. Through the tree, he implemented the vision from the Golden Scroll, a system where timelines would be protected from truly existential threats but otherwise allowed to develop according to their natural patterns. The effort finally overwhelmed him. With a gasping breath, Goku broke contact with the tree, staggering backward where Kefla caught him before he could fall. Did it work? He managed to ask, his voice weak from exertion. Before anyone could answer, the chamber began to transform around them. The artificial constraints around the tree dissolved, replaced by a more harmonious integration with the chamber itself. The tree's branches extended further, growing more vibrant, reaching toward the star-filled ceiling. What have you done? Kranoa asked, her voice a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Created something better, Goku replied, slowly regaining his strength. Look. He pointed to the tree, where the lights representing individual timelines now shone with renewed brilliance. The connections between them had grown stronger, forming natural networks of mutual support rather than isolated, controlled units. The regulatory framework. Kranoa approached cautiously, examining the changes. It's still there, but completely transformed. Protection protocols remain, but the erasure mechanisms are gone. Replaced with stabilization systems, Zamasu observed. Timelines in crisis will be supported, not eliminated. Natural divergence is permitted within sustainable parameters. The communicator chimed, and Trunks's voice came through with unmistakable relief. Whatever you did, it worked. The Time Patrol ships are withdrawing. The erasure protocol collapsed in on itself without affecting our timeline. And the refugees? Goku asked urgently. Safe, Trunks confirmed. Some damage from the initial assault, but nothing we can't repair. What's happening on your end? Goku looked at the transformed time tree, then at Kranoa, who stood studying the changes with an unreadable expression. We've established a new approach to temporal management, he explained. One that protects without controlling. The supreme Kai of time is, considering the implications. Indeed, Kranoa had fallen silent, her divine senses allowing her to perceive the full scope of what Goku had accomplished. The tree was responding to the new framework with unprecedented vitality, as if finally freed to express its true nature after eons of constraint. It's beautiful, she finally admitted, her voice soft. I had forgotten, how it was meant to be. You're not angry? Kefla asked suspiciously. Cronoa shook her head slowly. How can I be? I've served as Time's guardian for millions of years. I thought I was protecting it, but perhaps I was simply controlling it according to my limited understanding. She approached the tree, placing her small hand beside where Goku's had been. The tree accepts this new framework. Who am I to argue? So what happens now? Goku asked, still wary of her reaction. Cronoa turned to face them fully. Now we adapt. The Time Patrol will need to be restructured, retrained. Our mission will change from control to genuine protection. You're accepting this? Zamasu sounded skeptical. Just like that? I am Time's guardian, Cronoa replied with quiet dignity. If Time itself has chosen a new path, then I must follow, not lead. She looked at Goku with newfound respect. Though I admit, I never expected a scion to be the instrument of such fundamental change. That makes two of us, Goku said with a hint of his usual grin, though exhaustion still showed on his face. So, we're not enemies anymore. Cronoa considered this. I believe we are now, colleagues. Fellow guardians of a new temporal order. In the days that followed, a new Council of Time was established, not to control timelines, but to protect them from genuine threats while allowing natural development. Surprisingly, Cronoa herself proposed the council structure, representatives from across realities working together to maintain temporal health rather than enforce predetermined patterns. Goku, uncomfortable with formal authority, accepted a position as a guardian rather than a ruler, intervening only when truly necessary, otherwise allowing timelines to chart their own course. The time ring remained with him, recognized now as a tool of protection rather than control. Zamasu, with his unique perspective from the temporal void, became an advisor on divine-mortal relations across timelines. His philosophical evolution from destroyer to protector served as a powerful example of change. Kefla, embracing her dual nature, took responsibility for monitoring temporal boundaries, places where realities naturally intersected, sometimes requiring assistance to maintain stable coexistence. Trunks returned to what he did best, temporal fieldwork, but now as part of intervention teams that helped timelines in crisis rather than erasing those that deviated from a plan. Tao's scientific expertise found expression in a new research division, studying how timelines naturally support each other when allowed to interact properly. And the refugee settlement? It thrived, becoming a beacon of possibility, a living example of what could be accomplished when people were given the freedom to determine their own destiny. 6 months after what many now called the Temporal Revolution, Goku stood on a hillside overlooking the refugee city. What had begun as a desperate collection of survivors had blossomed into a vibrant community with its own unique culture, a blend of their original timeline's heritage and new innovations born of necessity and freedom. The scarred Bulma approached, having spotted him from the city. Her cybernetic components gleamed in the sunlight, though she wore them now as badges of survival rather than marks of trauma. Checking up on us? She asked with a knowing smile. Just visiting, Goku replied. Making sure everyone's doing okay. Better than okay, Bulma assured him. The new temporal framework has allowed us to establish trade relationships with compatible timelines. We're not just surviving anymore, we're thriving. Goku nodded, genuinely pleased. That's what it was all about. Giving people a chance to build their own future, not follow someone else's plan. Speaking of futures, Bulma gave him a sidelong glance. I hear you've been refusing formal leadership roles on the new council. Goku chuckled. Can you imagine me sitting in meetings all day? Not exactly my style. No, Bulma agreed with a laugh. I suppose not. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the city below. Children played in newly established parks, researchers worked in laboratories developing timeline-compatible technologies, and ordinary people went about their lives, lives that would have been erased under the old system. You know what's funny? Bulma finally said. In my original timeline, you died fighting Cell. I spent years wondering how things might have been different if you'd survived. And I never imagined this," she gestured toward the thriving community. "That a version of you from another timeline would not just save us but change the very rules of reality to give us a chance." Goku scratched the back of his head, slightly embarrassed by her reverent tone. "I just did what seemed right. Anyone would have." "No," Bulma shook her head firmly. "They wouldn't have. That's why it had to be you." Before Goku could respond, his communicator chimed. Kefla's dual-toned voice came through, "Hey, timeline saver. We've got an interesting situation in the U9 Gamma sector. Nothing dangerous, but definitely weird. Thought you might want to check it out. Could be fun." Goku's expression brightened at the prospect of a new adventure. "Duty calls," he said to Bulma with a grin. "Go," she encouraged. "We're fine here." "And Goku?" she called as he prepared to teleport. "Thank you. Not just for saving us, but for believing we deserve to be saved." With a nod and a smile, Goku raised 2 fingers to his forehead and vanished, off to his next challenge in a multiverse now defined not by rigid control but by endless possibility. The time ring glinted on his finger, no longer a stolen artifact of control, but a symbol of a new approach to temporal guardianship. Not rulership, not domination, but protection with respect for the natural flow of time itself. Somewhere in the realm between, the Grand Priest observed these developments with quiet satisfaction. The convergence nexus had resolved into a new path forward, one that even he, with all his cosmic foresight, could not fully predict. And that, perhaps, was exactly as it should be. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.